Chapter 204. It had to be said that although Su Hong was an auntie, she was really popular. People would come to visit her on visiting days, and when they came back, they would bring something back. In the past, Yi Huanyan could not get these things, but now she could benefit from it. While eating the cherries, Gu Fengfeng suddenly sighed with emotion. If my man was not caught, I don't know if he would want to bring me something. Second sister spat out the kernels into the trash can and said indifferently, "There's no reliable man in this world. I had a lover in the past, but after being caught, he never came even once. Those who came were all my sisters. That's why I say that men aren't as reliable as my sisters." After saying this, she glanced at Fu Yingxiang. "Look at fourth sister. She's so beautiful. Don't tell me she doesn't have a boyfriend? Has anyone come to visit her? Also, our eldest sister always has an assistant coming to visit her." When she said this, Zhuang Suqiu's face darkened slightly. Yi Huanyan quickly glanced at Su Hong, then took a cherry and put it in front of Zhuang Suqiu's mouth. "Sister Qiu, eat some. It's quite sweet." Su Hong seemed to want to say something, but Fu Yingxiang quickly stuffed a handful of cherries into her mouth and said with a smile, "Food can't stop you." Su Hong muttered, her face full of indignation. "What's wrong with your brains? What's wrong with your brains?" Yi Huanyan blinked, looking confused. What did she say? Xiaowu, who was busy eating, suddenly looked up and spat out several cherries into her palm. Sister Hong said that fourth sister is angry out of humiliation. Second sister even knows how to say idioms. Gu Fengfeng said with a teasing smile on her face. Everyone looked at each other and burst into laughter. Only Su Hong could say that her brain was angry. From the looks of it, she probably did not benefit from the 9 years of compulsory education. After acknowledging herself as a sister, Yi Huanyan had a good life in the prison. There was nothing to worry about, and her life was unchanged, but there was a lot of laughter. Except in the middle of the night, when she looked at the high iron window, she would still feel a faint pain in her heart. Jinjiang Park. The shutter door of the garage slowly raised, and the black car stopped steadily. Ling Han got out of the car, subconsciously adjusted the buttons on his suit, and walked into the villa with a frown. Suddenly, a familiar voice came from the kitchen. "Lingling, the last part of the black chicken soup. Turn off the heat and simmer it slowly." There was a hint of joy in the voice, as if it was filled with expectations for a lover. He couldn't believe it. Without even thinking about it, he strode toward the kitchen. "Yi Huanyan, when are you?" When he saw the figure in front of the kitchen stove turning around in surprise, he saw there was a glimmer of light in his eyes, but it dimmed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Lingling was stunned for a while. She followed Ling Han's gaze and glanced at the video that was still playing from the corner of her eyes. "This is the video of Miss Yi teaching me how to make the soup. I forgot one ingredient and just took it out to watch." There was a look in Ling Han's eyes that she could not understand, and it made her panic for a moment. I'll put it away now and not watch it." Ling Han frowned, turned around and left, leaving behind a few words in an indifferent tone. "No need, go do your thing." Lingling held her phone, and her gaze fell from the phone to Ling Han's back. She watched as he took off his suit jacket and put it on his arm as he walked up the stairs. Every step was very heavy, and he looked very lonely. There were not many traces of Yi Huanyan in this house. He had ordered that except for the 1/3 of the room, she was not allowed to make any changes to the other places. Even in the shoe cabinet at the door, there was only a pair of her home slippers. All of her things were in that 1/3 of the room. As a woman, there were very few things. For some reason, Ling Han felt that the house was getting emptier by the day. He couldn't help but open Yi Huanyan's wardrobe and take a look at the clothes that hadn't even been removed from the labels. In fact, the only clothes she wore on a daily basis were those for work. These expensive clothes and leather bags were as new as ever. They were all delivered to her with just a call from him to the counter. She left it here untouched. Yi Huanyan's salary was very high. In terms of material things, he had never mistreated her. Moreover, she did have the ability to earn that kind of salary at pleasure, but she almost never bought anything expensive for herself. Even her clothes were very few. She wore nothing more than shirts, jeans, sweaters, and jeans. They were all in low-key and mild colors. It was as if she had never thought of dressing up to be outstanding. He knew that Yi Huanyan was different from other women, but he could not explain why. But when he thought of her, he could clearly feel that she was different from other women. He could not bear to part with every bit of her. His fingers brushed past the clothes rack, and then fell on a pure black dress with black lace and white flowers inlaid at the corners. This was the dress that Yi Huanyan had worn at the end of last year's annual party. When he touched that dress, almost at the same time, Sun Yanhua's face flashed in his mind, followed by the scene of them walking the red carpet at the annual party. The anger between his brows finally converged on the words that Sun Yanhua had said that day when he slammed the door and left. In any case, I will definitely take her away. Clang! The clothes rack hit the wooden board, followed by the sound of cloth tearing in the air. In Ling Han's cold eyes, that dress was torn into 2 pieces and fell to the ground like a crumpled rag. His woman would be his until death. He would not allow anyone to covet her. In the presidential suite of a certain 5-star hotel in Lanjiang City, a silver-haired man stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, the loose gray robe accentuating his broad back. The sound of water splashing could be heard in the room, and on the frosted door of the bathroom was a deliberately seductive figure of a woman. The assistant behind him looked straight ahead and said respectfully, "Young master, according to the clue of Jiang Milan, our people have checked all the people who were in contact with her. We confirmed that her first marriage was 20 years ago, and 26 years ago, Jiang Milan was indeed a nurse at Lingjiang Hospital. She was addicted to gambling and owed a lot of debts." The silver-haired man who was addressed as young master slowly turned around and stared at the assistant. "Has there been any movement from that Ling Han in the past 2 days?" The assistant became even more respectful, as if he didn't dare to look into his eyes easily. He lowered his head even more. Ling Han's assistant has been in frequent contact with the prosecutor's office in Lanjiang City these past 2 days, but there doesn't seem to be any movement from the women's prison. Hearing this, the silver-haired man frowned, seemingly displeased. "We're not waiting for him. I'll leave this matter to you. We're not waiting." The assistant was slightly stunned. But they went to the prosecutor's office to find someone to mediate this case. The silver-haired man sneered with a hint of disdain between his brows. "I'm afraid he still plans to mediate in his heart for a while. We have to let him know that there's always someone better out there. He's not the only one who can cover the sky in Lanjiang City." Chapter 205. The silver-haired man's tone was full of coldness, and there was a cold air between his eyebrows. The assistant knew that he didn't have a good impression of Ling Han, so he didn't dare to ask more. He nodded in agreement, but he still didn't leave. He lowered his head and bowed, waiting for his orders. "After the matter is settled, I'll pick her up personally." As soon as he finished speaking, a woman's coquettish voice sounded in the bedroom. "Master, it's getting late. It's time to rest." This voice had the effect of ecstasy. Even the assistant, who had been motionless like a wooden stake since he entered the door, trembled and became a little restless. The conversation was interrupted. The silver-haired man looked in the direction of the bedroom, but he didn't look unhappy. "Can't wait." He curled the corner of his mouth. The woman leaning against the door frame was not afraid of the presence of others. She raised her hand and lifted the hem of her skirt, revealing her snow-white thighs. Her eyes were like silk as she bit her lip and said, "I just think that you should take care of your body and rest early." "Oh, is that so?" The silver-haired man had a thought-provoking smile on his face. "That's true. You should rest early." The woman's eyes moved, and she walked forward boldly. Her seaweed-like hair draped over her shoulders, and her wine-red silk nightgown revealed a scene that made people's blood boil as she walked. However, her every move was flirtatious, and it was not something that ordinary women could compare to. The silver-haired man stared at her for a while. Suddenly, he looked at the assistant and said casually, "What do you think of her?" The woman's footsteps paused slightly, as if she was stunned for a moment, but she quickly returned to normal. Men always liked to compare. Letting an assistant evaluate her was just to show off that he had such a rare treasure. The next second, the man pulled her into his arms and took a deep breath of the fragrance of her hair. This action made her confirm her thoughts just now, and she smiled even more charmingly. The assistant's expression didn't change as he spat out 2 words. Stunning. Hearing this, the woman pouted and raised her hand to hit the silver-haired man's chest. You're so annoying. The silver-haired man's eyes didn't move, but he had already pulled his arm away from the woman's waist. He said calmly, then she's yours tonight. The woman was stunned. She immediately thought it was a joke and said embarrassedly, Master, don't joke around. Even if it was a joke, no one liked to be verbally delivered back and forth as a trade item. The assistant was not surprised. She looked up at her with a trace of pity in her eyes. Her tone was indifferent. I will send her safely back to where she came from. The woman's expression changed. Master, I should rest. Didn't you say so? The silver-haired man looked at her, and the corners of his mouth curled up. It was very charming. Since you can't wait, I'll find someone for you. Isn't that good? The woman seemed to want to say something, but under his suddenly disgusted gaze, she couldn't say a word. She followed the assistant in a daze. It wasn't until she reached the door of the suite that she suddenly realized what was going on. She clenched the door frame and shouted at the top of her lungs. Grandpa, I won't leave. I don't want anything. I only want you. I don't want any status. I don't even want you to love me. I don't want anything. I just want you to let me stay by your side. The assistant stood behind the woman and said coldly, Young master didn't intend to give you all that you said. After saying this, he sighed as if he was talking to himself. I'm afraid he won't give it to anyone. The soundproofing in the room was very good. Other than the first inevitable scream of the woman, the world was completely silent after the door was closed. The silver-haired man sat by the bed. The cross on his earlobe glowed coldly under the light. He opened his wallet and quietly looked at the woman in the photo. His eyes were filled with all kinds of complicated emotions. There was tenderness and regret. The next morning, Lanjiang City Women's Prison. Gu Fengfeng was released after her sentence. Prison number 4 was approved to hold a small farewell party. Zhuang Suqiu thought of a way to get a cake. It was the simplest kind of cream cake, but it was already an amazing thing in the prison. Xiaowu was dissatisfied that Gu Fengfeng gave her a big piece and shouted, Third sister, you're already out. There's nothing good to eat, but you're still snatching it from me. Gu Fengfeng was very stubborn. She refused to give it to Xiaowu and said stubbornly, This is my farewell cake. If I eat it, I'll be a real sister. Why can't I eat it? I have to eat it, and I have to eat more than all of you. Only then can I work hard when I get out. Xiaowu was angry. She angrily stuffed a big piece into her mouth and cut another big piece. Su Hong saw that she was eating impatiently and wiped the cream on her face. She wiped the cream on the tip of her nose. Coupled with the red cream on her lips, she looked like a clown. Everyone laughed. It's food, don't joke about it. Little Five rubbed his nose and licked his fingers with a righteous expression. Yi Huanyan was also a playful person. As soon as Xiaowu finished speaking, she also wiped the cream on her forehead. Xiaowu stomped her feet. Fu Yingxiang also joined in the fun. Her cheeks fell. Xiaowu was going crazy, but she protected her cake plate with all her might. Then Gu Fengfeng's 5 fingers went straight to her face. Fifth sister, don't you want to eat? I'll give it to you. Ha ha ha. You're bullying me. Sister Qiu, are you going to do something about it? Xiaowu looked impatient and asked Zhuang Suqiu, who had always been dignified for help. Zhuang Suqiu looked up slightly. Huh. She held a big lump of cream with 2 fingers and turned to look at Xiaowu. She looked a little guilty. Sister Qiu, even you. What's there to say? Beat her up. Su Hong shouted. Everyone went up together. In the chaos, it was unknown who wiped the cream on who, and who made a lump of cream on whose neck. When the prison guards came to take Gu Fengfeng away, they saw that the 5th prison was in a mess. Even the bedding and pillows were not spared. The 6 people in front of them were in a terrible state. Zhuang Suqiu's short hair was plastered with cream. It was more effective than styling glue. Gu Fengfeng and Su Hong's necks were full of cream, as if they were wrapped in a circle of cotton. Yi Huanyan and Fu Yingxiang were a pair of sisters in distress. Their hair was stuck together and could not be untied. Their hair was wrapped in circles of cream and breadcrumbs. The most miserable was Xiao Wu. Other than her eyes, her face was full of cream. When the prison guards came, she was still beating her chest and stamping her feet, licking it desperately. Gu Fengfeng would have to leave when the time came. She reluctantly said goodbye. As for the remaining 5, the prison guards' faces were gloomy as they roared angrily. Everyone, carry your bedding and walk together. The destination is the laundry room. They had to wash the dirty bedding personally. Otherwise, clean ones would not be distributed to them. Chapter 206. It was a good time to enter spring in Lonjiang City. The women's prison was near the river, and it had always been cold in the cells. Now that they had a rare opportunity to come out, it was almost the middle of April, and the temperature had warmed up. It was afternoon, and the sun poured down and landed on the large sunscreen in front of the laundry room, making people's hearts itch. In the 4th prison, 5 people were squatting in a row on the cement floor in front of the laundry room, washing clothes. If it weren't for the eye-catching prison clothes on their bodies, the 5 of them would be chatting casually like rural women who only worried about their 3 meals and 5 grains. Sister Chiu, among us, you come from the best family. Can you tell me if a rich man's wife is just like the actors on TV? She has someone to take care of her every day. She has to either apply facial masks or go to the spa every day. She even has a special nanny to take care of her dog. The one who started this topic was Su Hong. She looked at Zhuang Suqiu eagerly, looking forward to it. Zhuang Suqiu rolled up her sleeves, and her fair arms were exposed to the sun. They were stained with soap and reflected the colorful light. She smiled and said, "Most likely, but not all of these." Su Hong glared at her. "Rich people have troubles too. Don't tell me that rich people will be lonely. I don't believe it." "Then second sister, if you have money, how are you going to live?" Yi Huanyan put the clothes that had been wrung dry in another basin, and asked as she fetched fresh clean water under the pipe. Su Hong was stunned. "Of course, I'll live the kind of life I just mentioned. I won't think about anything else, and I'll live a good life every year. Don't you want to find a man?" Fu Yingxiang teased. This question stumped Su Hong, but the big-hearted Su Hong quickly felt relieved. She waved her hand and said, "What's wrong with that? If I have money, I'll keep whoever I like. In this day and age, there's no need to talk about relationships. Only money is practical. After I'm done playing with men, I can even keep dogs." Yi Huanyan and Fu Yingxiang looked at each other and snickered. Even Xiao Wu was stunned for a moment, and suddenly burst into laughter. "Sister Hong, your taste is too strong. As the saying goes, men don't keep cats and women don't keep dogs." Su Hong's face turned red from their laughter. However, Yi Huanyan and Fu Yingxiang were too far away. She could only reach Xiao Wu with the towel in her hand, so she shouted, "You little hussy, even you are laughing with me. You haven't even grown all your hair yet. Have you tried those that aren't that heavy?" Xiao Wu dodged the water stains and laughed. "Why haven't I tasted it before?" "Second sister, you haven't seen it before, so how do you know that my hair isn't fully grown? Little wench, you'll know once I strip you naked." The quarrel became more and more outrageous, and the words of the two became more and more unpleasant to the ear. The remaining 3 people who were watching the show had different expressions on their faces. They all wanted to laugh but couldn't thicken their faces to laugh. It was very uncomfortable to hold it in. Despite the commotion, the prison guards were still monitoring them from behind. They only verbally attacked each other for a while before calming down very quickly. Zhuang Suqiu, who had been silent for a while, suddenly said, "Xiao Hong, what do you think is the most regrettable thing in your life?" "I don't have money," Su Hong answered without even thinking. Among the 5 people here, except for Su Hong, they all came from good families and had never lacked money. After Su Hong answered, Zhuang Suqiu lowered her head and rubbed the bedsheets in her hands. She said calmly, "I've never lacked money, but ever since I was born, the burden of inheriting the family business was on my shoulders. When I was 5, I went to all kinds of meeting places with the elders in my family. At first, I just had to follow the rules and not cry. Later on, as I grew older, I had to know how to read people's expressions, be sweet and obedient. After I was 10, I had to be smooth and slick in social interactions and draw inferences from one case. Su Hong was stunned for a few seconds. She stared blankly at her eldest sister, who had always been calm and steady. She didn't know what to do. When I was 6 years old, my biggest regret was that I couldn't be like other children at my birthday party and dirty my clothes. I couldn't show my love for cake, not just cake, but everything that I liked. Yi Huanyan came from a good family, but she wasn't as powerful as the Zhuang family, so she couldn't empathize with her. However, she didn't notice that Fu Yingxiang's expression changed slightly. She rubbed the bedsheets even harder. Su Hong was stunned. Why are your elders so strict with you? Actually, they weren't strict. Zhuang Suqiu smiled calmly. They didn't hit me or scold me. They just made me feel that there were many things that I couldn't do. I had to hide my emotions and not let others find out. My mother told me since I was young that our emotions are our biggest weakness for others to attack. So, emotional management was the biggest constraint they had on me since I was young. So, they didn't want you to laugh loudly when you were happy, and they didn't want you to cry loudly when you were sad. Zhuang Suqiu was stunned for a moment. It was the first time she had heard such a straightforward explanation. Compared to the mess she had made just now, it was much easier to understand. In the end, she nodded with a bitter expression on her face. Su Hong frowned and took a deep breath. Are they planning to suffocate the child to death? Seeing that the atmosphere suddenly became a little gloomy, Yi Huanyan turned off the water valve, coughed, and joked. Second sister, if you were to grow up like this, would you be willing? Su Hong said casually. Forget it. I'd rather earn my own money. If I'm happy, I'll earn more. If I'm unhappy, I'll close the shop today. I'll live a happy life one day at a time. There's no need to be angry. After saying this, Su Hong glanced at Zhuang Suqiu and said carefully, Sister Qiu, I'm not talking about you. I'm just saying, Sai. Anyway, everyone has their own life. You have your own advantages. It's better than me leaving home at the age of 12 to make a living alone. Seeing that she was comforting her in such a serious manner, Zhuang Suqiu laughed and glanced at her. Do I need you to comfort me? I'm living a life without anyone to care about me now, right? I've lived for more than 30 years, and I've encountered something like going to prison. I reckon that the coffin of my ancestors can't be closed anymore. I'm considered to have done whatever I want for once. Everyone was amused. Zhuang Suqiu had always been mature and steady. Her tone of speaking was most likely influenced by Su Hong and Xiaowu. If the saying one is marked by the company one keeps, one will be marked by the company one keeps, was combined together, even cinnabar would be covered in dust when it met black ink. Xiaowu twisted her clothes and raised her head to ask, Sister Qiu, what do you want to do after you get out? What about the mistress? Yi Huanyan was squatting beside Zhuang Suqiu. She could clearly see that her eyes trembled slightly, and there was a faint trace of hostility in them when Xiaowu mentioned the mistress. I'm your big sister. I can't embarrass you all, right? Big sister, if there's anything, just call me. My brother has enough manpower. As long as you give the order, I guarantee that he'll tear the mistress apart on the street. Tear her apart alive? Everyone's mouth twitched slightly. After all, she came from a martial arts school. She was violent. Chapter 207. Little Five, didn't you have a falling out with your family? Why is your brother still willing to help you? Su Hong asked. Little Five raised her eyebrows and said proudly. Who said Chun-Li? I'm talking about my big brother in the underworld. My skills were taught to me by my brother. Everyone looked at each other. Zhuang Suqiu coughed and said, Little Five, stealing is not a legitimate profession. After you get out of prison, you should find something else to do. Little Five frowned at the mention of this. Sister Qiu, are you looking down on me? In the underworld, friendship and face were the most important things. At Little Five's age, she was hot-blooded. It's not that I'm looking down on you. How about this? After you get out of prison, I'll introduce you to a new job in my company. You can be a receptionist or a clerk. The salary is stable and high. A clerk in the Zhuang Yu group had to be a first-rate graduate to be able to enter. Little Five was unhappy. Although she did not say anything, her expression was already very ugly. She was probably still upset that Zhuang Suqiu looked down on her pickpocketing job. Earn a living with your skills. Those who are not as good as others have to pay. That's not third-rate. This voice was clear and calm. It was Fu Yingxiang, who rarely participated in discussions. Everyone was stunned. They all thought that she was an otherworldly person and would scoff at this kind of thing. However, when she spoke, it reminded them that she was also caught for stealing. Thus they understood her words. Fu Yingxiang was not only trying to absolve herself. She smiled faintly, but she was persistent. For example, stealing, winning the lottery, gambling, and cheating. These so-called shortcuts to get rich overnight are actually all based on one's own skills. People spend 10 years at home to sharpen their skills. Most of them live a dark life because of this to support their families. Earning a little money is understandable, isn't it? Hearing this, even Yi Huanyan raised her head and stared at her, unable to move her eyes away. It was the first time she heard someone speak so confidently about these opportunistic and even illegal activities. Moreover, this person was such an elegant and refined woman. Fu Yingxiang seemed to have realized that everyone was looking at her strangely. She smiled awkwardly and said, "I was just saying it casually. Don't take my personal opinion seriously." Among the crowd, only Zhuang Suqiu looked at her with a hint of understanding. On the surface, he said that he wouldn't investigate her background, but she had to know what kind of dangerous person was living next to her, right? The five of them kept changing the topic. Xiao Wu and Su Hong, who loved to chat, took the lead. When they were almost done, the topic finally landed on Yi Huanyan. She was the last to arrive. What everyone knew about her was what she said a few days ago. There wasn't much to talk about. After all, it was a sad thing for her. Moreover, this sad thing was right in front of them. It had only been less than half a month. It was just that the topic had changed, and it didn't seem good to ignore her. In the end, it was Su Hong who asked cautiously, "Sister Yan Yan, what do you plan to do after you go out? Are you going back to that scumbag?" Yi Huanyan was silent for a few seconds. "I haven't thought about it yet." Since she was in prison, she had been thinking about the grievances between her and Ling Han, plus the entanglement between Sheng Anren and the other two. At the beginning of her one-year sentence, she hadn't thought about what would happen after she got out of prison. Xiao Wu jumped a little, poured the dirty water with cream foam in the basin, and spat. "Don't go back to that scumbag even if you die. Let him and that stinking shameless Sheng Anren go there. Sister, wait for me to get out of prison and help you clean them up." Su Hong gave her a white look. "Little brat, what do you know?" Zhuang Suqiu naturally understood Yi Huanyan's confusion and helplessness at the moment. She wiped her hands and patted her on the shoulder with dry hands. "You've been in this place long enough. What can't you understand? You'll always get over it." Yi Huanyan looked at her in a daze. "Sister, have you gotten over it?" "I've gotten over it. And I still have enough time to think about how to get all the things that originally belonged to me back, little by little after I get out of prison. Do you still want to go back to him?" "It's not that I want to go back, but he wants me to go back." Zhuang Suqiu's eyes were somewhat unfathomable. "Yan Yan, you have to believe that men prefer weak women. I came to prison for him. His guilt for me is enough to make me an irreplaceable existence for a long time. And so are you." When Zhuang Suqiu got up to dry the sheets, Yi Huanyan squatted on the ground and looked at her back in a trance. Using the psychology of guilt? But what if she didn't want to? From the beginning to the end, all she wanted was his heart. At the side, Xiao Wu lowered his head and pondered whether it was noble or not to rely on one's ability to make a living. Fu Yingxiang, on the other hand, stared at Yi Huanyan with a thoughtful look. Only Su Hong stared at the two of them. She glanced left and right and was speechless. It was as if she was watching a drama about the grudges between the rich and powerful. After watching the drama, she carried a basin of dirty sheets and ran to look for Zhuang Suqiu. She probably wanted to continue to discuss the problem of how many bedrooms there were in the rich's house. After a while, Xiao Wu carried the basin and went to dry the sheets. Only Yi Huanyan was left standing there in a trance. "Yin Yan, don't be sad. Time will let you think about everything clearly. Even if you can't, you might not be willing to think about it in the end." Fu Yingxiang's voice was very clear, as if a mountain spring flowed through one's heart, making one feel comfortable and pleasant. Her words and actions were always like this. She knew when to advance and when to retreat. Even when she was talking to you, she would maintain the right distance. She would not be too intimate and make people vigilant, but she would not be too cold and make people disappointed. Yi Huanyan nodded. She had heard her good intentions, but how could the pent-up resentment in her heart be dispelled with just a few words? In fact, Fu Yingxiang had already washed the bedsheets and blankets in the basin. She wrung them dry and placed them in the plastic basin. Her hands were clasped together as she squatted on the ground and looked at Yi Huanyan. Even though Yi Huanyan's mind wasn't here, she could tell that Fu Yingxiang was in a trance. "Yingxiang, what's wrong with you?" Originally, it was just a guess, but after asking, she saw Fu Yingxiang frown. Yi Huanyan knew that she guessed correctly. "What's troubling you?" "It's nothing. It's just that third sister left today, and I forgot to ask her about something. I only remembered it now and felt a little vexed." Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. "What's the matter?" "I want to tell my brother that I'm safe. He still doesn't know that I'm in prison, and I don't know if anyone is looking for me." "Ah." Yi Huanyan was stunned. "Shouldn't the prison send someone to contact your family? When I was young, my parents divorced early. My father took my brother with him and left. After my mother passed away, it was my brother who helped me in private. 3 years ago, my brother got married and moved out of the house. These past few years, it hasn't been easy for him. He only comes to visit me during the holidays. He doesn't usually contact me." Fu Yingxiang's eyes could not hide the grief in her eyes. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. She thought that if she still had relatives alive, they would be in as much pain as her, so she held her hand. "It's okay. Whoever gets out first will help you pass the message." Chapter 208. After Yi Huanyan said this, Fu Yingxiang's expression improved a lot, and the depression between her eyebrows faded. "Yin Yan, among the few of us, you should be the first to go out." Hearing this, Yi Huanyan was stunned. "You forgot about Xiao Wu. Xiao Wu only has half a year left before she can go out." After she said this, she saw that Fu Yingxiang still had a look of certainty on her face. "Then if I go out early, I'll pass you a message. Where does your brother live? What's his name? After you get out of prison, just call my brother. Before I leave, I'll write you a phone number. My brother's name is Gu Lu." Yi Huanyan nodded. Even though she did not think that she would go out early, seeing that Fu Yingxiang was so upset, she naturally spoke to her and gave her some hope. That night, Fu Yingxiang stuffed a piece of paper into Yi Huanyan's hand. It was folded very small, and she kept it close to her. As for why Fu Yingxiang did not mention this in front of the other sisters, Yi Huanyan also thought about it. Perhaps she felt that it was not worth mentioning. After all, Fu Yingxiang did not look like someone who liked to trouble others to do things for her. Yi Huanyan guessed that she had been anxious for a long time before she mentioned it to her. Not long after Gu Fengfeng left, the 5 people in the prison were sent to do some simple manual labor by the prison guards. Their main task was to help the factory that made the cardboard boxes as laborers. The cardboard boxes were not heavy, but they were big. The medium cardboard boxes could only be moved 2 or 3 at a time, and the large cardboard boxes could only be moved 1 or 2. They did not stop running back and forth. In addition, the prison guards kept urging them, so the 5 of them were so tired that their legs trembled when they returned to the prison after dinner every day. "When will these days end?" Su Hong sighed and patted her stomach. "It's okay to move things, but my waist is not good. I have to bend over and get up. It's killing me." Xiao Wu had just finished washing her hair. She laughed as she dried her hair. "Sister Chiu lives like a princess, but she doesn't complain like you. Are you a servant with the body of a young lady?" Hearing this, Su Hong glared at her. "Can't you hope for me to be better? I'm a young lady. Can't I have the body and life of a young lady?" Xiao Wu put the towel on her head and spread her hands. "Just here? If all 4 of us are your servant girls, we won't be able to live like young ladies, right?" Su Hong suddenly laughed out loud. "I've been a young lady for so many years, but now I'm liberated." Fu Yingxiang laughed when she saw the 2 of them start to fool around again. She saw Yi Huanyan come out of the bathroom with a basin of water and seemed to want to sit by the bed to soak her feet. Fu Yingxiang quickly went up to her. Your arms is okay, your arm is. Yi Huanyan tried to decline, but was glared at by Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang pulled Yi Huanyan to sit by the bed. The two of them got along well. But when Zhuang Suqiu saw this, she couldn't help but look at Fu Yingxiang a few more times, a hint of warning in her eyes. Fu Yingxiang's gaze shifted 2 inches away. She deliberately pretended not to see the look in Yin Yan's eyes. She squatted down and tested the temperature of the water in the basin. Yin Yan, the temperature of the water is a bit low. I'll go get some hot water for you to wash. Seeing this, Zhuang Suqiu got up. Let me do it. Yin Yan got injured because of me. Fourth sister, you don't have to trouble yourself with such a small matter. I'll do it. Fu Yingxiang knew that she couldn't avoid it, so she didn't insist. She smiled. Then I'll have to trouble Sister Qiu. Yi Huanyan was a little embarrassed by the two of them. She got off the bed. Sister Qiu, don't bother. I'll do it myself. My arm is fine. Besides, I still have one arm that's not injured. Naturally, the two of them followed her to the bathroom, where the hot water bottles were placed. Yi Huanyan was the first to come out with the hot water bottles. She muttered as she walked. I'm not disabled yet. Why are you following me so closely? If the prison guards see this, what will they do? She didn't notice that when the two of them looked at each other, neither of them was giving in. The two of them stood in front of the bathroom door and put some distance between them and Yi Huanyan. With Su Hong and Little Five's noisy background, the two of them didn't attract much attention when they talked. Zhuang Suqiu was half a head taller than Fu Yingxiang. When she spoke, she lowered her voice and narrowed her eyes with a hint of warning. I've already figured out your identity. Indeed, you didn't lie. But I need to know what you want Yin Yan to do. Fu Yingxiang was stunned. She didn't expect Zhuang Suqiu's news to come so quickly. They were both in prison, and no one had come to visit her recently. When did she find out? Before or after she confessed? I only asked her to help me contact someone. What happened after she contacted him? Let her know that she's safe. Did the two women from before do the same thing? Yes. Is this matter that dangerous? I'm not sure. You know that my situation is worse than yours. I've already lost contact with the outside world. I don't think the two of them succeeded in bringing the news I told them. Why do you think Yin Yan can do it? Other than her, I have no other choice. I need to inform my friends about my current situation as soon as possible. Zhuang Suqiu knew that Fu Yingxiang wasn't lying. After she explained the situation, she calmed down a lot. She only asked Yi Huanyan to send a message. Not to mention that this girl definitely had someone to protect her outside. Even if there wasn't, she could just pick a few people to follow her. Nothing serious would happen. With this thought, she looked at Fu Yingxiang with a more relaxed expression. Fu Yingxiang noticed the change in Zhuang Suqiu's attitude. She heaved a sigh of relief and looked up. Sister Qiu, thank you for understanding. Zhuang Suqiu casually revealed a smile. Guarding the family business is the most difficult. If you're not careful, you won't have the face to see your parents. Although our family business isn't the same, our situations aren't too different. If there's anyone here who can understand you, it's probably only me. There was a hint of gratitude in Fu Yingxiang's expression. But before she could say anything, a loud bang resounded throughout the entire room. Xiaowu was the first to exclaim, while Zhuang Suqiu and Fu Yingxiang both looked towards the source of the sound. It was the hot water bottle that exploded. It exploded right beside Yi Huanyan's hand. Following Su Hong's scream, the entire cell fell into chaos. Yin Yan, what's wrong with you? The four of them ran forward and surrounded her. But they didn't know what to do. A blue plastic basin was placed on the floor beside the bed. Next to it was the hot water bottle that had fallen on the floor. Yi Huanyan's thin and weak body was lying limply beside the bed. She didn't feel the hot water flowing on her hand. She had actually fainted. Zhuang Suqiu was experienced and was the first to react. Call the prison guards quick. Xiaowu, help her up first. Don't get scalded by the hot water. In the midst of everyone's panic, Yi Huanyan only felt dizzy. She vaguely heard someone calling her name. There was a piercing pain in her arm. but it was as if her whole body was stiff, and she couldn't move. She couldn't open her eyes and everything was dark. Chapter 209. When she woke up, she was still in the familiar infirmary. The difference was that this time, there was no doctor walking up to her. Instead, she heard the stiff sound of someone talking outside the door, and vaguely heard someone mention her number. Not long after, a female doctor pushed open the door and entered, looking at her with pity. "You can leave now." Yi Huanyan was stunned and looked down at her arm. It was already bandaged, but she still felt a dense pain like needles stabbing her arm from time to time. "It's just a few blisters, but it's okay. The child is fine." "Child?" Yi Huanyan was stunned. Before the female doctor could answer, a man in casual clothes knocked on the door. "Dr. Zhao, can I take her away now?" The female doctor nodded. "Yes." Yi Huanyan was still confused. Was it her imagination? She clearly heard the doctor say something about a child. "You said a child?" she asked. "Yes, you're already pregnant. You're 3 months pregnant. Someone is taking you out now, and your sentence has been suspended." Yi Huanyan felt like her brain had exploded, leaving only a roaring sound that buzzed in her ears. So much so that she didn't hear a single word the female doctor said when she approached her. She also didn't have any recollection of who the man in civilian clothes was, or how he walked out of the 4-meter-tall iron gate of the Lonjiang City Women's Prison. The prison's entrance was the backward broken crossroad, and a black Rolls-Royce was parked close to the road. Her expression froze. She vaguely remembered that there was a car similar to this one in that person's garage, but because he had too many cars, and Xiao Mu was usually the one driving the commercial car as the driver, she did not remember clearly. Was it him? "Miss Yi, please." The one who spoke was the man in black who took her out. He looked refined, but he was also ordinary. He was the kind of person who would not be easily recognized in a crowd. She was stunned, and for some reason, she subconsciously rubbed her lower abdomen. Then, she mustered up her courage and walked toward the car. But it was not Ling Han in the car. The man had a head of silver-white hair, and the cross on his left ear shone coldly under the sunlight. She subconsciously took a step back and stood vigilantly in front of the car door, staring at him. "Who are you? I saved you, yet you don't say a word of thanks. Isn't such an attitude impolite?" The silver-haired man's expression was cold. He glanced at her with a bit of scrutiny in his eyes. He sized her up from head to toe, and did not hide his naked gaze. Yi Huanyan felt uncomfortable being stared at by him and frowned. "I didn't ask you to save me. And how do you know that by bringing me out of here, you're saving me, not harming me? Get in the car." There was a complicated look in the man's eyes, and his gaze softened. "If you follow me, you will know that anyone in this world can harm you except me." "What a joke. I don't even know you." Yi Huanyan's face darkened. After saying this, she turned around and walked towards the wide and empty road in the suburbs. If she wanted to leave, she would leave by herself. Even if the person who came to pick her up was not Ling Han, for the sake of the child in her stomach, she wanted to give herself and him a chance. She had to find Ling Han. "What's your relationship with Jiang Milin?" A deep voice came from behind her, causing her nerves to tighten. Even her footsteps slowed down, and finally stopped completely. "You know my mother?" She turned around and sized up the silver-haired man. Although she knew in her heart that her unreliable mother had a lot of lovers before she married into the Ling family, the man in front of her had a head of white hair. From his face, he looked less than 35 years old. It couldn't be that kind of relationship, right? "She's your mother? Are you sure?" The silver-haired man's eyes were filled with ridicule, but his words made Yi Huanyan really angry. "How can I not know my own mother? What's wrong with you? You said that Jiang Milin is your mother. Then what about your father?" Yi Huanyan was so angry that she was trembling. This man who appeared out of nowhere to save her seemed to be looking at her from a god's perspective. It was as if she was small and laughable in his eyes, and could be played around with at any time. "My mother is Jiang Milin, my father is Yi Tingfeng. Do you want me to find them and confront them face to face? They are all in the cemetery in the southern suburbs. How about I take you there to see them?" She glared at the silver-haired man angrily, and her expression was very ugly. She had a child in her stomach, and she was suddenly released. After coming out, she had to face a man who suddenly appeared in front of her and asked her some confusing questions. Her chest was now full of anger. The silver-haired man's expression did not change at all. He was still staring at Yi Huanyan. His silver hair fluttered in the wind, and the cross shone with a cold light under the sun. You are 26 years old today. Jiang Milin and Yi Tingfeng got married 20 years ago. Before that, Jiang Milin and you depended on each other. Your name is Jiang Huanyan. Yi Huanyan's expression froze. What did you say? 26 years ago, Jiang Milin was a nurse in a small hospital in Lushui County. At that time, Yi Tingfeng was still studying abroad, and the two of them did not have any chance to meet. The silver-haired man spoke slowly, and every word fell clearly into Yi Huanyan's ears. To be honest, Yi Huanyan did not have a deep impression of her father. When she was 10 years old, Yi Tingfeng passed away from cancer. He did not have time to undergo any chemotherapy or surgery. He passed away very peacefully and quickly. One of the few memories she had was that when they were young, Yi Tingfeng would always agree to her requests. In her memory, Yi Tingfeng had never rejected any of her requests. When she could not wake up in the morning and did not want to go to school, he would carry her to the amusement park and play the whole day. On Saturdays and Sundays, they would definitely go out for picnics or fly kites further away. In summer, they would go to the swimming pool. It was said that childhood memories were not easy to be engraved in one's heart, and that was indeed the case. However, such memories would appear one by one when one thought of a certain person. Perhaps it was not very clear, but those colors were the most complete feelings at that time. The silver-haired man's lips curled into a meaningful smile. He stared at her like this, as if he could see another person through her. Who exactly are you? She asked. Are you sure you want to talk here? The silver-haired man glanced at the car door. Yi Huanyan frowned and hesitated for a moment. In the end, she steeled her heart and got into the car. This man had broken the one thing that she had been sure of for the past 20 years, and she suddenly realized that everything was as he had said. There was a scene in her memory where Jiang Milin carried her luggage and officially moved into the Yi family's big house. She had always thought that it was just a family moving. Chapter 210. Pleasure Group President's Office. Xiaomu rushed out of the elevator and rushed to the president's office, ignoring the surprised gazes of the assistant team. Xiao Dong poked his head out of the secretary's office. Assistant Xiao, are you looking for President Ling? He's having a meeting on the 10th floor, and not in the office. It'll probably take a while. Xiaomu was about to push the door open when he heard this, but he paused. How long? I'm not sure. You know that President Ling doesn't have a fixed number of meetings. If he suddenly sees a key problem, it's possible that the meeting will last until the night. Xiao Dong was about to send a stack of documents to the meeting room. Is there something urgent? Xiaomu frowned. Was it something urgent? Even if it was something urgent, it was hard to say. After all, it was a private matter. Seeing his hesitation, Xiao Dong asked hesitantly. Private matter? Xiaomu nodded. Xiao Dong was taken aback and lowered his voice. Secretary Ye's matter? Xiaomu's expression changed slightly, as if he did not want to discuss this topic with Xiao Dong. Forget it. I'll wait for President Ling in the office. Xiao Dong confirmed from his abnormal expression that this matter was indeed related to Yi Huanyan, and his expression changed immediately. Assistant Xiao, what's the urgent matter? Tell me quickly, did something happen to Sister Yi? Nothing happened. Xiaomu's expression was no longer strange. When he first received the news, the nervousness in his heart had more or less disappeared. Xiao Dong's question did not bring him too much confusion. He turned around and walked into the president's office, directly shutting Xiao Dong outside. He needed time to digest the complicated emotions in his heart just now. It was a call from Sheng Anren, and there were already 2 missed calls. During this time, Ling Han had been asking him to mediate Yi Huanyan's matter, and he spent the rest of his time listening to Sheng Anren's complaints. After Yi Huanyan was imprisoned, Ling Han refused to meet with Sheng Anren. Smart people knew that this was just a roundabout way of breaking up. Sheng Amren would not fail to understand, but she just could not let go. Qiao Mu could tell. The sound of a message notification interrupted Qiao Mu's thoughts. He looked down at the phone in his hand and pressed the button to check the message. Sheng Amren's words popped up. Qiao Mu, help me ask Wen Han if we can have dinner together tonight. I've reserved a restaurant, and it's his favorite French cuisine. Qiao Mu creased her brows and swiftly typed a line of words on the keyboard. He won't go at all. Stop thinking about him. Then, he hesitated for a few seconds on the send button. However, in those few seconds, the message was not sent out. Instead, he deleted it word by word. A few seconds later, Sheng Anren received a text message that made her so happy that she couldn't help herself, sweeping away the haze of these days. He agreed, but he's going to a meeting now. I'll tell you after the meeting. Don't contact him without permission. I'll arrange it for you. Several messages of gratitude in a row made Qiao Mu's face turn cold. He could almost imagine how happy the woman on the other end of the phone was. She opened the wardrobe and picked out the clothes to wear tonight, the jewelry to wear, and even the perfume to match the atmosphere tonight. He held the sofa and slowly sat down with a gloomy expression. This world was really unfair to him. He didn't want much, but it was always abandoned by others like a worn-out shoe. Ling Han's meeting did not last long, because Xiao Dong was delayed by the documents. Ling Han asked with a cold face, "Why did it take so long?" After Yi Huanyan was imprisoned, his temper had always been like this. He would not tolerate the slightest thing that he was not used to. He was as elite as the president's assistant team, and half of them had already resigned and left under the pressure. Xiao Dong's hand that was putting down the documents froze slightly, and she whispered. Assistant Xiao came back and said that there was something urgent, so I asked. Ling Han's hand that was about to flip open the documents also paused. What's the matter? He didn't say. It shouldn't be anything urgent. After saying this, Xiao Dong avoided a scolding, and the people in the meeting also avoided the pain of facing Ling Han's icy face for a day. In less than half an hour, the meeting ended abruptly. Ling Han's figure had already disappeared from the door of the meeting room, leaving the room full of people looking at each other in bewilderment. Qiao Mu didn't have much to do recently, except for the business that the two of them were discussing, and Yi Huanyan's matter. Even though Xiao Dong said that it might not be a big deal, Ling Han was always absent-minded during the meeting. His mind was filled with the prison photos that Qiao Mu showed him that day. She was injured, had one arm in a sling, and looked half dead. She had also lost a lot of weight. Thinking of this, even if there were more questions in the meeting, he could not listen anymore and left in a hurry. President Ling, is the meeting over? Seeing that Ling Han came back in less than 15 minutes, Qiao Mu was more or less surprised. Ling Han did not waste time with him and asked directly, What's the matter? Is there any obstruction from the prosecutor's office? No, they are very cooperative. According to your instructions, they plan to release her at the end of this month. In the end, Ling Han could not bear to let her stay in that place for too long. He frowned, and his expression was somewhat twisted. Then how's her injury? She's more or less recovered. I heard that the braces have been removed. She even washed her own clothes 2 days ago. There's no problem. Ling Han's hanging heart finally settled down. He pulled out a chair and slowly sat down. He even casually flipped open a contract and spun the pen twice. He seemed to realize that he was too nervous. This was indeed not a big deal. However, Qiao Mu's next sentence ruthlessly stabbed a knife into his heart. He was not prepared for it at all. Dr. Zhao from the infirmary of the women's prison sent a message, saying that she's pregnant. The 4 words she's pregnant made Ling Han suddenly grip the pen. His face darkened with a bit of shock. What did you say? Dr. Zhao said that she's already 3 months pregnant. 3 months pregnant? Pa. A crisp sound was heard. Qiao Mu stared blankly as the signature pen in the owner's hand broke in the middle. Black ink flowed down the owner's fingers and onto the clean paper of the contract, forming a large patch of ink. Ling Han's gaze at this moment was extremely terrifying. 3 months ago, during the Pleasure Annual Gala, he never lacked safety measures when he slept with Yi Huanyan, Even if there was a 0.1% oversight in the safety measures, he did not believe that such an oversight would happen to him. And on the night of the annual gala 3 months ago, he was the one who personally saw Yi Huanyan and Su Nianhua spend the night together in a hotel. What could a single man and woman do under the influence of alcohol? As a man, he did not think that Su Nianhua was very gentlemanly. Moreover, Yi Huanyan's heart had been with him since 10 years ago. It was hard to say that she did not forget their old feelings. Yi Huanyan, you're really bold. His malicious eyes were suffused with a cold light. He gritted his teeth and asked, "Where is she? Bring her back immediately." Chapter 211. The prison guard said that Secretary Yi was taken away after it was discovered that she was pregnant. Xiaomu lowered his head, a trace of surprise in his eyes. He did not expect Ling Han to have such a big reaction after learning that Yi Huanyan was pregnant. There was only one reason why a man would be shocked and furious when he heard that his woman was pregnant. This reason made Xiaomu's eyes flash with suspicion and even a trace of disappointment. Who took her away? Ling Han's face darkened. A name quickly flashed through his mind. It's not clear yet. The person who took Secretary Yi away has a very deep background. Dr. Zhao only saw an assistant with the surname Gu. There was a moment of dead silence in the office. Investigate Yi Huanyan's current location. The cold voice covered the entire room with a layer of chill that seemed to be able to seep into people's bones. Even Xiaomu could not help but shudder. According to Ling Han's instructions, Xiaomu used the technical department to secretly investigate from 2 directions. One was to investigate Su Nianhua's whereabouts, and the other was to investigate the movements of the women's prison throughout the afternoon. In the end, it was confirmed that Yi Huanyan took a black Rolls-Royce to Lanjiang City's neighboring city, Lu City, after leaving the women's prison. Director Ling, we've investigated. It's a black Rolls-Royce with an unknown owner. The name of the owner is a nobody, which is probably the name of the driver. There are about 3 people in the car heading toward Lu City, and have now arrived at Lanjiang City's highway entrance. After learning the exact location, Ling Han picked up his jacket and followed Xiaomu into the car without another word. He mobilized the entire fleet of pleasure cars and prepared to surround that mysterious Rolls-Royce on the highway. 15 luxury cars of various models sped up on the highway. The leading car had already exceeded the speed limit several times and finally caught up with the black Rolls-Royce. The Rolls-Royce's mirror reflected the shadows of a long line of luxury cars behind it. The driver's face darkened slightly, and a trace of vigilance appeared on his face. "Young master, someone is chasing us from behind." The silver-haired man's gaze landed on the rearview mirror, and his lips curled into a cold smile. "Quite a large number of people. Young master, should we inform Achi? There's no rush. Let's play with them first." After saying this, the man held the woman's hand tightly and said gently, "Sit tight." As soon as he finished speaking, the car suddenly accelerated. The 3 people in the car sank into the leather seats at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, they were more than 100 meters away from the dozens of cars. Ling Han's face was extremely dark. "Inform the fleet behind to block them. I don't care if there are casualties. I will bear all the consequences. If you don't dare to go, hand in your resignation letter tomorrow." Pleasure's motorcade was organized by the security team, and every one of them was well trained. After Ling Han gave the order, more than a dozen cars behind quickly overtook them, and the tires were almost separated from the ground. The overtaking motorcade practically brushed past Ling Han's car. Xiaomu tightly knitted her brows and gripped the steering wheel, barely managing to say, "Director Ling, safety is more important. Speed up." Ling Han only spat out 2 words, but the carriage was filled with a chill. "It's a bit interesting." The silver-haired man had been staring at the rearview mirror. When he saw the group of people desperately chasing after them, his eyes were filled with competitiveness. He was about to tell his assistant to speed up when his palms suddenly turned cold. He frowned and looked over. Yi Huanyan was clenching her teeth, and her face was pale. "Slow down. Stop." He gave the order without hesitation. Not long after, The black Rolls-Royce stopped on the highway. Under the night sky, the street lights shone on the roof of the car. More than a dozen cars followed closely behind and surrounded them. Now they couldn't leave even if they wanted to. The silver-haired man's expression was as usual. He held Yi Huanyan's hand and asked in a low voice, "Do you still want to go back to him?" Yi Huanyan clenched her teeth and didn't speak. She looked very weak. The moment the car stopped, she broke out in a cold sweat. Before the silver-haired man could reply, she fainted in his arms. Holding this cold and soft body, a trace of regret flashed in the silver-haired man's eyes. He forgot that Yi Huanyan's body wasn't very good. As for her psychological endurance, she couldn't compare to people like them. But before Yi Huanyan fainted, he saw the subtle movement of her nodding at him. Did she still want to go back? He frowned. Ling Han's car was the last to arrive. After getting out of the car, he walked toward the center of the motorcade with a cold face. He saw a silver-haired man walking toward him with Yi Huanyan in his arms. "Gu Xinian?" Ling Han's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. "Take good care of her. She's pregnant and can't take too much suffering. What's your relationship with her? Why are you saying this to me?" Ling Han's face darkened, but his hands didn't stop. He took Yi Huanyan from him and held her in his arms. She was very light, much lighter than before. "This has nothing to do with you. It's between me and her. Gu Xinian, I respect you in business, but it's best if you don't touch my things, especially my woman. This is China. Are you threatening me?" The silver-haired man's eyes moved. The bangs in front of his forehead rose with the wind, revealing his delicate and deep facial features, especially his cold eyes. At this moment, he was examining Ling Han. His tone was very disdainful. "I stopped here today not because I'm afraid of you. I'm returning her to you, because I see that you've put in a lot of effort to find her. Do you really think that this is China? So it's not within the scope of my Gu family's power?" As soon as he finished speaking, a rumbling sound came from the distance. Dozens of black BMWs of the same model flew over, and around those cars, there were no less than 50 motorcycles shuttling back and forth in the black traffic, each of them weighing a cold steel pipe in their hands. In an instant, they surrounded Ling Han's people and cars. They occupied a few hundred meters of the road. "President Ling, I don't plan to go against you, even though I don't have a good impression of you." After saying this, Gu Xinian turned around and left. No one dared to stop him. Ling Han's eyes burned with the flames of anger. In the fading exhaust fumes, there was a fierce and cold light. The person in his arms was pale and showed no signs of waking up. What was her relationship with Gu Xinian? Who exactly was Gu Xinian targeting with his actions? After throwing her into the car, Ling Han directly walked past Xiaomu and drove away with Yi Huanyan. He only left behind a sentence floating in the cold wind. "Tomorrow morning, I want all of Gu Xinian's information." Xiaomu stood on the highway. The phone in his pocket kept vibrating. Ling Han's order just now was still echoing in his ears. However, when he saw the caller ID, a smile inexplicably appeared on his lips. "Sorry, I couldn't answer the phone just now. President Ling can't go. Yi Huanyan is pregnant." "Okay, I'll go find you." After hanging up, his smile contained a bit of self-mockery. In this world, he was not the only one who could not see through. There was no harm in adding him. Chapter 212. The black car sped through a stretch of neon lights and exited the highway from Lu City. Then, it slowed down on the deserted national highway and returned to Lan River. Yi Huanyan woke up with a jolt. She held onto the seat and sat up straight with difficulty. A trace of surprise flashed across her eyes as she looked at the back of the driver's seat. She was completely unaware of the thrilling scene just now, but she knew that Gu Xinian would definitely allow her to return to Ling Han's side according to her wishes. The rearview mirror reflected Yi Huanyan's movement of getting up. Ling Han's eyes flashed with a trace of relief that he didn't even notice. But in the next second, the frost between his brows shrouded the entire car. As he stepped on the accelerator, sand and pebbles flew everywhere on the uneven road. There were several times when the wheels of the car left the ground and spun rapidly above the road. Along with the gravel under the car, Sparks were wantonly bursting out. Yi Huanyan gritted her teeth and resisted the discomfort in her body. She held the door handle with one hand and subconsciously pressed her lower abdomen with the other. When this action landed in Ling Han's eyes, it made the cold light in his eyes become even colder. The speed of the car had exceeded Yi Huanyan's limits. In the violent jolt, she finally let out a cry of surprise. Her hoarse voice sounded inexplicably mournful in the car. "Han, I'm not feeling well. Drive slower." The coldness in Ling Han's eyes had condensed to an extreme point. When he thought of the child in her belly of unknown origin, and Gu Xinyan's intimate and familiar appearance when he mentioned her, there seemed to be a ball of fire in his heart that couldn't be quenched. The car sped along the bumpy road for a long time. Finally, it couldn't bear the pressure. With 2 rumbles, it slowly stopped by the side of the road that was overgrown with weeds. Then the engine was turned off. Ling Han frowned and restarted the car twice. Finally, he saw the direction of the gas indicator and slammed his fist hard on the steering wheel. The car shook violently, let out a final whimper, and then completely paralyzed. Yi Huanyan held onto the door handle and retracted her hand into the back seat. She cautiously looked at Ling Han and hesitated for a long time before opening her mouth to suggest this. "Give Qiaomu a call. This place doesn't seem to be far from Lan River." Her tone was no longer as nervous as before she was imprisoned. Even after experiencing Ling Han's out-of-control racing, she didn't panic too much. She covered her lower abdomen with her hands, and there was a hint of happiness in her eyes. This was their child. As long as he knew of the existence of this child, they could definitely start afresh. He used to be such a gentle person. However, Ling Han didn't think so. He turned around coldly. "Who are you to tell me what to do?" Yi Huanyan felt a lump in her throat. She pursed her lips and remained silent. As if looking for self-consolation, she looked at her lower abdomen, and the grievance in her eyes lessened a little. After the crisp sound of the door closing, Ling Han's voice rang out from outside the car. Naturally, he was asking Xiao Mu to find someone to pick him up. However, it seemed that the voice outside the window abruptly stopped after a few words were said. Yi Huanyan looked up and saw Ling Han standing in the cold wind with his phone in his hand. He looked down at it, and then viciously smashed the phone on the ground. Because his back was facing her, she couldn't see his expression, but she could feel that he was very irritated at the moment. It was just the beginning of spring, so the night wind was strong. Just from the moment Ling Han opened the door, Yi Huanyan already felt the chill creeping into her neck. Looking at the thin figure wearing only a shirt outside the window, she didn't hesitate to take his jacket and get out of the car. Hearing the sound of the door opening, Ling Han reflexively turned around. There was a thin and long cigarette between his right index and middle fingers. White smoke drifted in the cold wind, covering up the chill on his face. "Why did you come out?" His tone was cold as he stared at Yi Huanyan with furrowed brows. He was very impatient. Yi Huanyan's footsteps paused slightly. She passed the coat to him and whispered, "It's cold outside. Put on the jacket." His cold gaze paused on her face for a moment before he suddenly sneered. "I've seen many two-faced women, but this is the first time I've seen someone as dedicated as you and put on a full act." Yi Huanyan was stunned. Her arm that was holding up the black woolen jacket gradually became sore, but she stubbornly refused to put it down. "I didn't." She pursed her lips, her voice drifting in the wind. Ling Han looked at her and sneered. "You didn't? You went to prison partly because of me. You and I both know this in our hearts. Now that you've escaped death with great difficulty, you don't hate me, but instead express goodwill to me? What exactly do you want from me?" His gaze intentionally landed on Yi Huanyan's stomach. Yi Huanyan raised her eyes to look into his eyes. In the end, she put down her arms that could no longer bear the burden. However, she took 2 steps closer to him. Then, she lowered her gaze and looked at his chest. A rare blush appeared on her pale face. Her voice was very gentle, overflowing with the taste of happiness in the watery night. Although it was a little hoarse, he could still vaguely recall the sweet memories of the past. "Han, I'm pregnant." She couldn't see Ling Han's expression. She only felt that he should be surprised at this time. Even if there were many misunderstandings between them, She still believed that there was love between them. As long as there was love, then he would definitely like this child. The cold wind swept past, blowing the elegant long hair behind her ears. The hair brushed against her eyes. It was a little itchy, but she endured it and didn't move. She didn't want to miss any reaction from Ling Han at this moment. In the night wind, she finally heard his voice. It was even colder than the evening wind in April. So, she raised her head in surprise. This was far from what she had expected. The moment she raised her eyes, she finally found that that handsome face didn't have any expression she expected. There was only indifference, and a trace of anger that was gradually spreading. "Yi Huanyan, do you think I'm a fool?" He suddenly sneered, and his sarcastic gaze cut her inch by inch. "Don't tell me you want to tell me that this child is mine?" Yi Huanyan widened her eyes, and her lips trembled slightly. She looked up at his face in disbelief, trying to find a trace of a joke on his face, but there was none. There was only indifference. Why do you say that? This is our child." Hearing this, Ling Han's eyes fiercely trembled. Every word exuded a bone-chilling coldness. "I'll give you one last chance. Go back to Lawn River tomorrow, and abort this child. I'll let bygones be bygones." After saying this, he threw away the cigarette, but in his hand, letting it flicker between the cracks of the sand. He stepped on it and crushed it. Then, without looking back, he walked towards the car door. Yi Huanyan's eyes were filled with a deathly stillness. Looking at that resolute back, she felt like something had been uprooted in her heart. In the boundless desert, she had finally lost her last oasis. "Get in." He opened the car door and looked at her with a cold expression. Yi Huanyan took 2 steps back. She regretted it. She shouldn't have come back. "I'm not going with you. Whether you acknowledge it or not, I want to keep this child." Chapter 213. Yi Huanyan's face was pale. She was still wearing the clothes she had worn when she first appeared in court. She was thinner than before, and it looked like her entire body was swaying under the clothes. She looked very thin. She looked at Ling Han with disappointment in her eyes, but it wasn't as much as when she was hurt by him in the past. Even if she heard him ask her to have an abortion, she could still recognize reality as quickly as possible. Ling Han's calm face finally reignited with anger. He strode in front of her and grabbed her wrist fiercely. His tone was unquestionable. "Get in the car." He didn't care about Yi Huanyan's attitude and dragged her away without any explanation. A long drag mark on the gravel road extended to the car door, accompanied by a woman's screams and struggles. Yi Huanyan's toes were firmly pressed against the ground, and her other hand was holding onto the roof of the car. As she struggled, she used her back to close the car door fiercely, finally temporarily blocking Ling Han's violent drag. Her eyes were red as she said mournfully, "You hate me so much that you don't want our child. I won't go with you. Let go of me. You won't go with me?" Ling Han's face darkened, and he loosened his grip slightly. "Then who do you plan to go with? Sun Yanhua? Or Gu Xinian?" His eyes were burning with fire, as if he wanted to burn this woman in front of him, who lied to his face like a second nature, into a pile of ashes. He roared, "Yi Huanyan, whose child is this? Can you say it clearly yourself?" Yi Huanyan's eyes were red, and tears slid down her cheeks from the corners of her eyes. "In your eyes, am I this kind of woman?" Ling Han's eyes trembled. The stalemate made every minute and second seem very long. "You think you're not?" Ling Han grabbed her shoulder with one hand and increased his strength, almost crushing her shoulder blade. She felt the pain and furrowed her delicate eyebrows, but she gritted her teeth and refused to make a sound. Ling Han looked at her, and a trace of hostility finally appeared in his eyes. He hated this look of hers the most. She was at the mercy of others, as if it was an insult to her to explain herself. But if she was really so virtuous, why did she go to a hotel with Sun Yanhua on the day of the New Year? And why was she in Gu Xinian's arms today? Wanton and despicable. Unrepentant. He used his other hand to lift her chin. His eyes were filled with hostility as he swept his gaze across her face and questioned her coldly. "What do they like about you? After sleeping with you for so long, you only have a few positions on the bed. It's so annoying. Or do you have more tricks when you're not with me? She didn't say anything, so he wanted to provoke her into retorting. He bent down, but the hand that was holding her chin slipped. She turned her face away, her expression distant. A burst of anger that had been building up for a long time surged up from his chest as he suddenly grabbed her face. The back of her head hit the car door and was numb from the shock. He fiercely bit down on her pink lips, and the taste of blood spread in their mouths. Her body always had a fragrance that made him fascinated. Sometimes it disturbed him, but sometimes it made him feel at ease. He greedily sucked on her taste. Only at this moment could he let go of everything and admit that this person in front of him was his woman. The black woolen coat fell to the ground and was stepped on twice in a panic, but no one cared about it. Yi Huanyan clenched her hands into fists and desperately pounded on his chest, but it was like hitting a rock with an egg. It had no effect. Woo! Ling Han gave a groan and suddenly knitted his brows. He rubbed his thumb over his lips and the bright red blood stain was a bit shocking. Yi Huanyan suddenly clutched her chest and bent over to retch violently. Ugh! Ling Han finally found his reason. His eyes fell on her lower abdomen, and the madness in his eyes returned to its initial coldness. He moved away and coldly looked at her from the side without saying a word. After an unknown amount of time, she finally vomited until she was completely exhausted. She stood up with her hands on her knees and looked at Ling Han's indifferent expression. She finally used the last bit of her strength to shout out, "Why don't you believe me? I didn't do anything with them, nothing at all." After shouting, there was no response. She held onto the car door in a panic and staggered. She looked at Ling Han with a gaze that was close to despair. This man doesn't have a heart, she thought in despair. The sound of the door closing was heard. The remaining heat in the car gradually warmed her cold body. She didn't have the strength to resist, and could only let him push her into the car. She collapsed in the back seat with a desolate expression. Ling Han sat next to her, and didn't speak for a long time. In the car that couldn't start, the heat gradually dissipated, and the temperature dropped. Yi Huanyan fainted as if she was extremely tired. She kept making choking sounds in her sleep, and some of her painful murmurs fell into Ling Han's ears. After a while he seemed to have thought of something. He pushed open the door, and picked up the coat on the ground. He brushed the dust off it, and covered her up to her small nose. It covered the sound of her uncontrollable sobbing in her sleep. Under the coat, the thin body shuddered twice. She frowned and shouted, "Han, we have a child." Ling Han's eyes seemed to be moved. He looked at her delicate features in a daze for a moment, but in the end, his eyes dimmed bit by bit. This child couldn't be his. In the wee hours of the morning dew was heavy and the chill was invading. The continuous phone calls made the woman quite dissatisfied. She grumbled coquettishly, "Didn't you say you would accompany me?" Xiaomu looked at her absent-mindedly. In a moment of carelessness, she snatched his phone and hung up. In the living room of the villa in Fujin Park, the tea was already cold. It was already early in the morning. He didn't sleep the whole night, and neither did the woman in his arms. Nothing happened. Many times, when she couldn't get through to Ling Han's phone, or when she couldn't ask him out for a meal, she would call his cell phone. Then, he would put down everything in his hands and rush here to accompany her for the night. He just hugged her and listened to her ramble about some incoherent things. She was very smart and always tried to sound him out from these words, trying to get some confidence from him. It was all about Ling Han. In reality, Xiaomu knew that for a woman like Sheng Anren, who would do anything to achieve her goals, as long as he wanted to, she would be willing. However, he had never crossed the line. Merely these intimate actions in the past few days already made him bear a heavy sense of guilt. He knew that Sheng Anren was not a good woman on the moral level, but he loved her beyond redemption, as if he loved a dark version of himself. "Xiaomu, help me, okay?" The woman in his arms finally cut to the chase after a long-winded ramble. Her hands continuously groped his body, which was her usual teasing method. Xiaomu's eyes froze, and he quickly grabbed her slender wrist. His voice was hoarse, and contained a bit of false bravado as a warning. Anren. Her seductive eyes were like silk, and possessed a soul-stealing beauty. At this moment, she was lying on his chest. Ignoring the wrist that he grabbed, she lowered her head slightly and lightly pecked his chin. Don't you want me? Chapter 214. Xiaomu tightened his grip on her wrist, and his eyes abruptly changed. He stood up without a care, almost causing her to stumble as he said coldly, You don't have to use this method on me. Sheng Amren was stunned, and her watery eyes were instantly filled with tears. She choked. What can I do? What can I do? You told me. She's pregnant, so I can't do anything. Xiaomu clenched his fists and his face darkened. In the end, his heart softened because of her painful appearance. When he left behind a sentence. Her pregnancy isn't necessarily a bad thing for you. Rest well, and don't think too much. What's yours will always be yours. Sheng Amren held her red wrist, and looked at the determined back until the back disappeared. Her delicate and pitiful face suddenly turned to one side, and a meaningful arc appeared on her lips. They were just men. They were all the same. Why were they pretending to be virtuous? The people Xiaomu sent out found Ling Han, when it was almost dawn. After Ling Han sent Yi Huanyan back to Jinjiang court, he changed his clothes, and went directly to the company. He did not mention her pregnancy to the servants at home, and it could be said that he barely said anything. In the office of the president of the pleasure group, Xiaomu arrived at the office with a stack of documents. When he saw that Ling Han was already there, surprise flashed through his eyes. He slowly took a breath, and then sent the documents to Ling Han's desk. The contracts with Director Wang and Director Li have been signed. The quarterly reports of the other branches are here. I've circled the areas with problems. My suggestion is that the companies with minor problems solve them themselves, and call the person in charge to the headquarters for a meeting if the problems are serious. Also, this is Gu Xingyan's information. This is all I found so far. He put a craft paper bag in front of Ling Han with a respectful expression. Ling Han raised his eyes to take a look. He didn't seem to take it to heart as he spoke casually. He said casually, You haven't rested after work recently. You've been busy with this? Usually, when he called Xiaomu outside of work hours to ask him to do something, he would do it himself. However, recently, Xiaomu seemed to have asked others to do many things. Even when his car broke down last night, he did not personally pick it up. Xiaomu was unperturbed. The earlier we finish, the earlier we can implement the measures. Ling Han's eyes were filled with gratification. If those people in the assistant team had half of your work awareness, my workload would have been reduced by half. Xiaomu lowered her head as embarrassment flashed through her eyes. If there's nothing else, I'll go out first. I still have some things to take care of at the prosecutor's office. When he reached the door, Ling Han's cold voice suddenly sounded behind him. Xiaomu. His footsteps paused, and he slowly relaxed his grip on the doorknob. He turned around, but he didn't dare to look into Ling Han's eyes. What's wrong? Chief Ling. We've known each other for more than 10 years. I've never kept anything from you. All these years, I've always felt that there's no one I can trust around me, except for you. Xiaomu's heart skipped a beat, and she hesitantly raised her head, only to discover that Ling Han was not looking at her. He was sitting behind his large desk with a pen in his hand. The documents on his desk were piled high, covering his chest. The pen in his hand tapped the craft paper bag intermittently, and there was a hint of confusion between his brows. Too many people have betrayed me all these years. It seems that it's hard for me to truly trust anyone. Xiaomu heaved a sigh of relief and said cautiously, Chief Ling, in terms of work, one should indeed be wary of others. You're right about this. Is that so? Seeing is believing. It's enough to only believe what you see. Ling Han was silent for a couple of seconds when he heard this. A long while later, the bewilderment in his eyes completely disappeared. He finally recovered the decisive killing manner that he should have. His pair of cold eyes rotated gently before he spoke in a faint voice. Contact the private doctors in the obstetrics department and take them to Jinjiang court. Have Yi Huanyan do that child. When he mentioned the child, he paused for a moment, as if he could not bear to do it. However, Xiaomu did not notice his strange expression. Ling Han was adept at hiding his emotions. Even though he had been by his side for more than a decade, he still could not completely see through him. Jinjiang Court. When Yi Huanyan woke up, it was already afternoon. Her pregnant body was not like before, and her stomach was empty and growling many times. The fetus in her belly had long reminded her that it was time to eat, but because of the nightmare, she did not wake up for a long time. When she opened her eyes, she saw a familiar place. It was snow white, and the furnishings were even more monotonous than the hospital. This was the 1/3 room that belonged to her in Jinjiang Court. She did not know when she changed into her pajamas, and she did not even know how she came back. Yesterday, the cold wind was bone-chilling, and after she fell asleep, she kept having nightmares and could not wake up. "Miss Yi, you're awake?" It was Lingling's voice. Yi Huanyan supported herself on the stairs and looked at Lingling, forcing a smile. "MHM." However, Lingling was very happy. She put down the lunch she was preparing and hurried upstairs to support Yi Huanyan, nagging non-stop. "It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back. Miss Yi, you don't know how quiet the house was during the month you were gone." Young master almost didn't speak. Sigh. Yi Huanyan was slightly taken aback. Yi is still living here during this time. She thought that after she went to prison, Ling Han would stay at Sheng Anren's place in Fujin Garden. Or perhaps he would bring Sheng Anren here. However, Lingling did not understand the meaning in her words. She scooped soup for her and said with a smile, "Of course this is young master's house. If he doesn't live here, does he have to go out and live in a hotel? Young master is only occasionally not at home, but he comes back most of the time." Yi Huanyan did not comment, but when she lowered her head, her expression could not help but darken. "All right, Miss Yi, you have a fever. Remember to take your medicine after you eat." Lingling put the medicine box that she had prepared earlier on the table, and after reminding her, she turned and went into the kitchen. Yi Huanyan picked up the medicine box, stared at the instructions and frowned. There was a line of words written on it that stood out to her at the moment. "Use with caution when pregnant." When she finished cleaning up the kitchen and came back, Yi Huanyan had already finished eating. She wrapped herself in a shawl and was sunbathing in the backyard corridor. The medicine on the table was untouched. "Miss Yi, don't you want to take your medicine?" she asked. Yi Huanyan responded with a simple, "Yes." Lingling was stunned for a moment. She thought that every medicine had its side effects. The fever was not too serious, so it was not a big deal not to take the medicine. She did not say anything else, and took the medicine away. Yi Huanyan sat on a chair in the backyard corridor. When the sun shone on her, some color returned to her face, but she still looked weak. She suddenly missed the days in prison. The villa in Jinjiang Court was very big, but to her it was like a huge cage, so stuffy and suffocating. When she thought of Ling Han's attitude last night, the uneasiness in her heart grew stronger and stronger. Chapter 215. It was dusk and it was evening. Yi Huanyan endured the various discomforts of pregnancy, ate dinner, and went upstairs early to rest. Ling came upstairs with a glass of milk and sat by her bed with a jacket. When she touched her hand, she was shocked by the cold. "Miss Yi, why are your hands so cold? I'll get you another blanket." Yi Huanyan shook her head. "It's okay. I'm not cold. That's just how my body is." She had a cold body since she was a child, but she had always been healthy. It was only because she was physically and mentally exhausted that it became so obvious. The heater was on in the room. It was already April, but she was still covered with a thick blanket. In fact, she was not cold, but her body could not warm up. Even so, Ling was still worried, so she simply added another blanket for her. "If it's still like this, you have to see a doctor." When Yi Huanyan heard the word doctor, she did not know why, but her body froze. Ling Han's words were still vivid in her mind. He wanted her to abort the child, so she was in a state of panic. "It's okay." She lowered her head to hide her panic. Her fingers touched her lower abdomen under the blanket, and she suddenly looked up and asked, Ling, can you go out and buy something for me?" Ling was slightly stunned. "It's so late. What do you want to buy?" "Some medicine that I need to take regularly." There's a pharmacy near the community. I'll write it down for you. Ling Ling took the piece of paper that Yi Huanyan wrote and nodded. Although she was puzzled, she did not ask any more questions. The paper said, progesterone vitamin E folic acid tablets. Ling Ling vaguely felt like she had heard the names of these medicines somewhere before. It was late at night. Not long after Yi Huanyan closed her eyes, she heard the sound of the door opening. At first, she thought it was Ling Ling, but when she heard the sound of heavy footsteps, her body trembled, and she secretly gripped the blanket. Ling Han still carried the chill of the night. After entering the room, he took off his jacket and threw it on the sofa. The smell of alcohol quickly filled the room. Yi Huanyan frowned fiercely under the blanket. He stood by the bed, his eyes bloodshot as he stared at the figure, his entire body filled with hostility. Yi Huanyan had her back to him. She didn't dare to open her eyes or move. When she felt a weight on her body, she suddenly opened her eyes. The strong smell of alcohol almost suffocated her. She exclaimed and subconsciously turned her head to avoid his kiss. He was drunk and delirious. She smelled of another woman's perfume, vulgar and cheap. It was not Xing Anren's. Ling Han clearly caught the flash of disgust in her eyes. Instantly annoyed, he pressed down on her shoulders through the blanket, making her unable to move. He asked, "You don't want me to touch you, do you? How clean do you think you are?" Yi Huanyan felt as if the blanket on her body weighed 1,000 kilograms. Her heart couldn't beat, and she couldn't speak, as if something was stuck in her throat. She could only stare at him with tears in her eyes. How could a drunk person be rational? Seeing that Yi Huanyan didn't respond, he lifted her quilt and began to peel off her thin pajamas. "Ah, no." She finally made a sound, patting Ling Han's hand, trying to stop his action. Ling Han impatiently clasped her hands and raised them high above his head. His scarlet eyes revealed a bloodthirsty light as he swept his gaze across her face that was about to cry. His voice was hoarse, cold, and cruel. "Didn't you say that this child was mine? I'll give you a chance to make up for what you haven't done before." Hearing this, Yi Huanyan's face turned pale. She desperately waved her hands, trying to stop his rough actions, and screamed, "No, no, I beg you, Ling Han, I beg you, don't touch me, don't touch me." Her manic attitude made the hostility in Ling Han's eyes even more intense. He reached into her pajama pants with one hand. Separated by a thin layer of fabric, he wantonly played with it for a while, and soon felt something. With a click, a cold belt buckle was fastened on Yi Huanyan's wrist, binding her to the bedpost. Without any obstruction, he tore open her pajamas with a cold face and wantonly humiliated her delicate body. With the other hand, he pulled down her underwear. His scorching large member violently penetrated without any mercy. The pain of this forced penetration almost made Yi Huanyan faint, and the rapid impact that followed made her want to die. She screamed, struggled, and cold sweat flowed down her cheeks. But no matter how she cried and begged for mercy, she couldn't stop the most primitive animal desire of a drunk man at this moment. In the end, the belt buckle on the bedpost loosened, and Yi Huanyan's hands slipped, but she couldn't stop it anymore. She let the waves of impact below her body. She covered her lower abdomen, twitched in pain, and bit open her lips. She let the blood drip and spread on the clean white sheets, but she refused to make a sound. Only the man's muffled groans continued until he was exhausted, leaving a burst of warm impact in her scarred body. Just as he wished, he self-righteously made up for what he hadn't done before. The moment he climbed to the top, Ling Han's mind suddenly became clear, but the arrow was knocked on the string, and he had to release it. He finally did the last step, and then he got up to deal with his own body. There was only emptiness in Yi Huanyan's eyes. As he withdrew, she lost the support of her legs and fell on the bed sheet like a kite with a broken string. Immediately, she used the last bit of strength to quickly curl up on one side, trembling helplessly. Her smooth back was full of bruises. Her tattered pajamas hung on the side of the bed like a pile of rags. Half of it was covered by a head of black hair that poured down in torrents. Ling Han sat by the bed, smoking one cigarette after another. When Ling Ling came back, this was the scene. She suddenly covered her mouth, and the medicine in her hand spilled all over the floor, startling Ling Han. It also made the person whose back was facing the door suddenly shiver. Young master. Ling Ling didn't know what to do, but she couldn't avoid it. Scram. Ling Han spat out a word in a daze. The medicine on the ground was very eye-catching to him. Although he was awake now, he still had an impulse to press her on the bed and fiercely ask her if she wanted this child. The cold moonlight shone on the white bed. Yi Huanyan only felt dizzy, and the feeling was the same as the day before. In a daze, she lost consciousness. The next day, a private doctor in the obstetrics department came, and Yi Huanyan was so flustered that she almost suffocated. It wasn't until the kind-looking middle-aged female doctor told her that she was just going to do a simple pregnancy checkup that she started to cooperate with the checkup. In the end, she didn't eat anything or do anything harmful to her body. Only then did she heave a sigh of relief. After coming out of the villa, the female doctor directly got into a car and said respectfully, "Miss Ling, 3 months have passed. The child is already more than 3 months old, and it's not suitable for an abortion. Also, Miss Ye's body is cold. If we force an abortion, she won't be able to have a child in the future, and it will hurt her body." In the car, Ling Han's face was as gloomy as water, and he didn't speak for a long time. For a long time after that day, Jin Jianjiwen was extremely quiet, and the male owner of the house didn't appear again. Chapter 216. Blurg. In the washroom of Jinjiang Court, Yi Huanyan held onto the sink. This was the 5th time she had vomited today. She had vomited almost everything she had eaten. Sometimes she would feel nauseous just from smelling the food. Ling Ling stood by the side at a loss. When she finished vomiting, she took a hot towel and handed it to her. "Miss Yi, it's not a good thing to continue vomiting like this. Why don't you stop eating?" Yi Huanyan wiped her face. Her face was as pale as paper, but she shook her head and sat down at the dining table. She picked up a spoonful of braised pork, vegetables, and rice and put it into her mouth to chew. Ling Ling watched her frown with a serious expression. It looked like she was going to vomit every time. Ling Ling was even prepared for her to vomit again. However, Yi Huanyan only paused for a few seconds before swallowing stiffly. After a long time, she finally ate a mouthful of rice. She pulled the corners of her mouth and gave Ling Ling a comforting smile. Ling Ling was about to cry. She stomped her feet, held back her sobs, and walked to the kitchen. "I'll make you some light soup." She did as the doctor said. Even though the morning sickness was strong, Yi Huanyan forced herself to eat on time. Vegetables and fruits were fine, but meat was hard to swallow. She struggled to eat meat every day, but the diet therapy was effective. In the end, she managed to keep the baby in her belly. She could feel the heartbeat of the baby in her body. She could feel whether it was healthy or sick. In the days when Ling Han was not around, she was disappointed, but more than that, she was relieved. Night fell. In the luxurious private room of Lanjiang City's Golden Crown KTV, there was loud music and dancing. For the past few days, all the multi-talented male and female live streamers of the Shanghai branch of Pleasure Group had gathered here. After the restructuring of Hujiang Network Media Company, the TR live streaming platform, which was the main platform, had received a lot of good reviews for the first quarter of the year. In addition, Pleasure had spent money to invite a lot of celebrities to use this platform for live streaming. Now the number of people registered had far surpassed all the other live streaming platforms in the country. Even though other platforms could do the same, TR's predecessor was a software development company that had gathered a group of programmers. They had a lot of talent, and just the stability of the platform and the smoothness of the network were already one of the best among live stream platforms. They were superior in terms of technology. This time, TR's new manager, Wang Peizhou, had brought this group of online streamers to Lanjiang City for a meeting. As soon as he arrived in Lanjiang City, he was arranged to eat and drink to his heart's content and accompany Ling Han every night. This was a far cry from the rumored Ling Han, who was meticulous in his work. Wang Peizhou was recommended to Ling Han by the headhunting company. He did not even pass Ling Han's eyes, and was directly arranged by Qiao Mu to be the general manager of Hujiang. This person was indeed talented. Under his management, TR was what it was today. This time, he came to Lanjiang City to report on his work. But in reality, he was here to officially meet Ling Han and officially acknowledge his position as the general manager. The matters of accompanying him to eat, drink, and play were all arranged by Assistant Xiao from the headquarters. So Wang Peizhou was happy and relaxed. In short, it was the boss's intention. He would not blame him, so he ate and played with him in peace. Seeing that Ling Han did not have any objections, he simply let the streamers on the platform change their performances. After accompanying him for a few days, Wang Peizhou realized that this boss seemed to be absent-minded. Although he ate and drank extravagantly, did not even blink when he signed bills, and did not show any disgust when surrounded by women, not a single woman could truly get close to him. President Ling, I'll toast you on behalf of the streamers of Hujiang TR. The person who spoke was the female streamer, Zhou Weiwei, who had just finished singing. Her voice was very good, and she used to be a talent show singer, so she had a fan base. After Wang Peizhou entered TR, he took the initiative to recruit her. Ling Han held the wine glass and looked at her from afar. He knocked the bottom of the wine glass on the coffee table, which could be considered a toast. His attitude was slightly cold, but it was not to the extent that it would put her on the spot. Zhou Weiwei was also discerning. When she saw this, she no longer approached him. She smiled and drank the wine, then used the excuse of singing again. Sorry I'm late. A sweet female voice came from the door of the private room. Ling Han was disturbed by this familiar voice and frowned. He looked in the direction of the voice, and a strange look appeared in his eyes. The girl at the door was not tall. She had a ponytail, and only had light makeup on. She was wearing a wide school uniform. It was not the uniform of an aristocratic school, but was wide and large. It was the blue and white striped style of an ordinary high school. Although it looked a little rustic, it looked like mud among the colorful beauties. Wang Peizhou was naturally tactful and thoughtful to be able to get to where he was today. When he saw that Ling Han's gaze was different from usual, he quickly waved at the door. You're always the slowest. What's going on today? The girl walked in casually, wiping the sweat off her forehead. President Wang, I went to work so hard, but I still got scolded when I came back. Seeing the clothes she was wearing, Wang Peizhou thought of something and explained to Ling Han. This is Guogua, our TR's female streamer. She can bear hardships. Although she doesn't have many fans, she has the most live streams on our platform. Her affinity is also relatively high. She went to the live stream today, so she came back late. The name Guogua sounded familiar, but Ling Han did not take it to heart. He only stared at her white school uniform in a daze. The wine was intoxicating. Under the swaying lights, some things that were too familiar became the focus. It could always make people ignore other things. When he looked at the school uniform, it was as if he saw a familiar face with a big smile. The corners of his mouth suddenly moved, revealing a rather gentle arc. Guogua, who was about to propose a toast, was slightly stunned. His gaze was too focused and too gentle. Just one look was enough to make her drown in it. She even forgot how cold and cruel he was when they first met in Shanghai half a year ago. Guogua, what are you waiting for? Why aren't you toasting President Ling? Guogua suddenly came back to her senses. She held the wine glass and followed Wang Peizhou's path. She took the opportunity to sit beside Ling Han. She leaned on the corner of Ling Han's clothes and probed. President Ling, I'll punish myself with a cup. Is that okay? A trace of confusion flashed across Ling Han's eyes. Then he pulled her into his arms and whispered, No need. I'll drink for you. The entire audience was in an uproar. Guogua leaned into the wide embrace at a loss, enjoying the sudden gentleness. It was like a dream. God, if this is a dream, don't let me wake up. The music stopped abruptly, causing the private room to fall into a moment of silence. It was Wang Peizhou who glared at Zhou Weiwei, who was warming up the scene, and mouthed a reminder. Hurry up and sing. Thus, the private room returned to its original state of debauchery. Because of Ling Han's sudden act of eating the food of the mortal world, the extravagance was even worse than it had been 2 days ago. Zhou Weiwei sang absent-mindedly, Her eyes intentionally or unintentionally landed on the person in Ling Han's arms. Her gaze gradually tightened. For the first time in days, someone could sit beside Ling Han. Chapter 217. The next day, the news that the third-tier anchor In Guogua accompanied Ling Han, the president of the pleasure group, to get a room with him appeared in the headlines of the major entertainment sections like flying pieces of paper. Ling Han had always had a lot of scandals. In addition to Sheng Anren, he also had scandals with many female artists. Most of them didn't last long. Now it was not surprising that the scandals reappeared in front of everyone. However, many people complained about the injustice for Sheng Anren. They said that one left and another came. They were afraid that it was not so easy to enter this rich and powerful family. The only beneficiary was In Guogua. The number of fans on the TR platform skyrocketed. Many people were curious to see who had crushed a stunning movie queen like Sheng Anren. And In Guogua did have her own way to keep her fans. Just by relying on the affinity that Sheng Anren didn't have at all, the number of her fans increased several times. Fengshang magazine. After Ji Xiaoya sent a batch of new clothes into Su Mang's office, she was inevitably scolded by Su Mang. Then she came out to change clothes with a gloomy face and a belly full of anger. When she passed by the cubicle, she caught a glimpse of the new intern of the company secretly watching the live broadcast on the computer. She bumped into the muzzle of her gun, so she stretched her neck and leaned over. Just when she was about to get angry, she suddenly saw the two words Ling Han on the live chat interface. A long series of comments dazzled people, but she still caught a few key messages. Guogua, what's the relationship between you and Ling Han of the pleasure group? Are you Ling Han's new girlfriend? You don't look the same as Sheng Anren. When seeing these, Ji Xiaoya was already furious. She suddenly pulled the earphone cord. The trembling voice of the intern was mixed with the coquettish complaint of the female anchor. Sister Xiaoyu. No, President Ling and I are superior and subordinate at work. We are just good friends. Don't get me wrong. These days, saying that they were good friends was basically admitting it in a disguised way. Ji Xiaoya glared at the intern fiercely. The 1.8-meter-tall intern was yelled at by Ji Xiaoya until her head drooped. Do you want to watch the live broadcast during work hours? Do you still want your job? I was wrong. I won't do it again, Sister Xiaoyu. Ji Xiaoya was usually easy to talk to, but her temper was particularly bad today. No one dared to underestimate her. The intern boy had a pleading look on his face. Don't tell the sister in charge of checking attendance. Ji Xiaoya glared at the phone and roared rudely. What kind of lousy live streaming app is this? Delete it for me. Also look at your taste. You like this face of an online celebrity? How did you get into Fengshang? Ji Xiaoya was still holding a pile of clothes and muttering to herself as she left. Her sense of beauty is getting worse and worse. Is she King desperate for food? That evening, Fujin Court. Ling Han's sudden arrival surprised and delighted Sheng Anren. After the servant called to inform her, she hurriedly pushed away all the work at hand and rushed home as fast as she could to see Ling Han. But he looked like he was ready to leave. Han, I'm sorry. I'm a little busy with work. My leg injury hasn't fully healed, so I'm delayed. She had just changed her shoes, stood at the entrance, and looked at the figure in the living room, and hurriedly explained. Ling Han's face was indifferent. Just do what you need to do. Sheng Anren changed into slippers, walked to him intimately, and took his arm. Since you're here, let's have a meal together? I'll cook. I'll cook it myself this time. Didn't you say you wanted to eat it before? Ling Han frowned and pulled his arm out of her hand. His eyes were very cold. Thinking of the news of the past 2 days, Sheng Anren was a little unhappy, but she couldn't get angry. She pursed her lips and hesitated for a while. I've learned a few home-cooked dishes. Auntie said they taste good. Do you want to try them? Ling Han's eyes flitted across the door of a bedroom on the second floor, and his tone inexplicably became gentler. Okay. After entering the kitchen, Sheng Anren's face completely fell. Although Yi Huanyan was pregnant, he had been living in a hotel for such a long time, and there had been a lot of gossip in the past 2 days. As Qiao Mu said, Yi Huanyan's pregnancy was nothing to worry about. But what was the matter with that online streamer? From the looks of it, Ling Han was still quite interested in her. Huan Yu had been on the hot search list for the past few days, but she didn't see Huan Yu remove her. She allowed this woman to shine in the news and become a thorn in her eyes. She asked Xiao Mu in a different way, but he was very tight-lipped and couldn't find out how far Ling Han and that streamer had developed. He just said, "President Ling is a little interested in her, that's all." Sheng Anren was annoyed. Since Ling Han came, it was a rare opportunity. Ever since Yi Huanyan went to prison, their relationship had been in a deadlock. She had to find a chance to take the initiative to show goodwill. Only then could the gap between them dissipate. Otherwise, she really didn't have any chance. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but put more effort into cooking. 3 dishes and a soup were served on the table. They looked good. The simple garlic stir-fried meat, shredded potatoes with green peppers, mushroom greens, and tomato and egg soup were home-cooked dishes to Ling Han's liking. Seeing that Ling Han ate a lot and seemed to be very satisfied, and even took the initiative to ask her about some work matters, Sheng Anren couldn't help but feel a little proud. After following Ling Han for almost a year, she more or less knew what he had an appetite for. Naturally, it was not something that those new online streamers could compare to. "Han, TR's livestream has been very popular recently. Why don't you let me help you promote it?" Sheng Anren lowered her head and pretended to ask casually as she picked up the food. "Actually, I can help." Ling Han ate a mouthful of vegetables absent-mindedly. "If you want to do it, then do it. You can also increase your affinity. It's a win-win situation, but don't do it too often." Sheng Anren's eyes flashed with a strange look. She scooped a bowl of soup and placed it beside him as she asked carefully, "I heard that many of TR's streamers have come to Lan River recently. You've been busy with this for the past 2 days, right?" I heard that there's a female streamer named Guogua recently. She's quite popular. Is she a newcomer that the company is strongly promoting?" Sheng Anren beat around the bush. But no matter how much she beat around the bush, she had a target. In front of Ling Han, she was undoubtedly showing off her slight skill in front of an expert. Hearing this, there was a soft sound. He put down his chopsticks, and the gentleness and calmness in his eyes disappeared without a trace. He looked at Sheng Anren with an indifferent pair of eyes. "What else did you hear?" Seeing that his expression was not good, Sheng Anren hurriedly changed her words. "Nothing. I'm just worried about your health. I've been dealing with the drinking party for the past 2 days. I don't mean anything else. You have your own ideas. I know." Ling Han looked at her with an even more indifferent gaze. The food in front of him was tasteless. He didn't say anything more. He got up and left, leaving behind 4 cold words. "You think you're smart." Seeing that he was about to leave, Sheng Anren was burning with anxiety. In the end, she couldn't help but question his back. "Are you still blaming me for Secretary Ye's matter?" The figure at the door paused for a moment. After a long while he said, "It's just a gathering of some small artists. If you're interested, I won't stop you from attending." That female streamer had been in the headlines too often recently. She was too popular, and it was easy to be hated by others. She always needed someone to check and balance her in advance. It was better than falling into the hands of a business opponent. Chapter 218. After dropping that specious sentence, Ling Han's car drove away from the garage of the villa in Fujin Court. Sheng Anren stood at the gate of the courtyard without giving up. Finally, she didn't see Ling Han look back at her. She clenched her fingers, and there was a flash of jealousy in her eyes. She was just an internet celebrity who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth after just 2 days. She would like to see what kind of goods she was. As night fell, there was no trace of light in other windows except for the living room. Lingling was cleaning up the garbage in the kitchen. When she came out, she was carrying 2 black plastic bags in her hand. When she saw the figure sitting behind the coffee table, she couldn't help but stare. Following Yi Huanyan's gaze, she saw the newspaper under the coffee table. She was secretly annoyed. How could she forget to put it away? "Miss Yi, the things in the newspaper are all groundless. You can't take them seriously. Yi Huanyan raised her head and looked at Lingling with a smile. What she said made Lingling somewhat at a loss. She pointed to the photo of Yin Guogua in the newspaper and said in a flat tone, "I've seen this girl." She had seen her once in Hujiang. At that time, Ling Han was also there. Lingling didn't know what Yi Huanyan meant by this. She only saw that after she said this, she went upstairs alone with a very lonely look. She carried 2 garbage bags and went out to throw the garbage with a heavy heart. However, she saw a familiar car parked at the gate of the villa. It was Ling Han's car. He leaned against the door and smoked. It seemed that he didn't notice her existence. She followed his gaze and looked in the direction of the master bedroom on the 2nd floor. The faint light had just turned on. Lingling threw away the garbage and hesitated to go forward. "Young master, it's windy outside. Don't you want to go in?" Ling Han just saw her. "How are you these 2 days?" This question was not clear, but even if Lingling was a little careless, she also knew that this question was for Yi Huanyan. Miss Yi vomited quite badly. She only started to feel better today. She stays in the house every day and doesn't come out much. Her complexion is fine, but she doesn't seem to be in a good mood. She didn't know what to say and what not to say. She could only hesitate and say some things that she didn't think were important. She thought that men were soft-hearted. If she said that Miss Yi wasn't living well, the young master should be thinking about her a little. However, Ling Han merely frowned and exhorted, "Take good care of her. Call Xiao Mu if anything happens." The car slowly started and disappeared in the direction of the entrance of the neighborhood. Lingling stood in the same spot and looked up at the window of the master bedroom on the 2nd floor. She didn't know when the lights had been turned off. She sighed. These 2 people, one was stubborn and the other was tough. No one was willing to give the other a way out. She didn't know what the problem was between the 2 of them, but she could clearly feel that these 2 people cared about each other. Yi Huanyan went to bed early every day and fell asleep almost as soon as the lights were turned off. After being pregnant, she was always sleepy. If the doctor didn't ask her to walk more, she felt that she could sleep for a long time every day. But tonight, as soon as she closed her eyes, all she could think of was the never-ending gossip. He clearly knew that she could see it, but he still did it. It was just to humiliate her. In his heart, she would always be a fickle woman without any value of pity. In the dark of the night, Ling Han received a call from Ji Xiaoya not long after his car drove out of Jinjianjiwen. The other party on the phone was naturally furious. He took off his Bluetooth headset and threw it on the car seat. He waited until Ji Xiaoya was done scolding him before he picked up the call again. "Ling Han, don't you have a heart? Yin Yin is still in prison. It's bad enough that you didn't save her when she was dying, but now you're still fooling around with those women. Isn't one Xing Anren enough?" Ji Xiaoya's voice was a little tired. Feng Shang had a lot of work, and working overtime was common. Looking at her, it seemed that she had been busy all day and had just gotten off work. He didn't know that she had seen the news and was suppressing her anger to scold him. Thinking of Yi Huanyan's current situation, Ling Han's brows flashed with a hint of depression. She's already out of prison. There was a pause on the other end of the phone for a few seconds, then suddenly exclaimed, "What did you say?" She was released from prison a week ago and is now living in Jinjianjiwen. If you have time, go and see her. It's more useful than scolding me. His tone was a little cold, but what he said was really good for Yi Huanyan. She's out of prison. She's out of prison, but you're still fooling around. You. Without waiting for Ji Xiaoya to finish scolding, Ling Han hung up the phone, pulled off the Bluetooth headset, and threw it in the car. That night, Lanjiang City's Golden Crown KTV. It was already late at night, but it was the climax of every night's revelry. Men and women were swaying on the dance floor, wearing revealing clothes and acting boldly. It was normal. Tonight, Ling Han appeared a little late, but this didn't affect the enthusiasm of these people towards him, especially Yin Guogua. Today, Yin Guogua changed into a sexy outfit. These 2 days, Ling Han's attitude towards her was really good. Even her immediate superior, President Wang's attitude towards her was obviously better. He even gave her a lot of gifts, including many expensive bags and clothes. As soon as Ling Han entered the private room, he noticed Nguogwa. She was sitting next to his usual seat. She was wearing a miniskirt and a strapless top. There was very little cloth covering her body, and her pair of white thighs were crossed. When she saw him, she quickly got up, and her pair of breasts trembled. Her face was filled with a warm smile. "President Ling, why are you so late? We've been waiting for you for a long time." Nguogwa had a youthful appearance and a sweet voice. However, when she spoke, there was a bit of flattery in her voice, which made her sound very humble. She was completely different from the person in his memory. Under the dim light, she didn't see Ling Han's frown. As soon as he sat down, Nguogwa took advantage of the situation and climbed up. She held his arm and asked in a coquettish voice, "President Ling, are we still playing dice today?" A strong smell of perfume assailed his nostrils. A trace of displeasure flashed across Ling Han's eyes, and he pulled his arm away. This action had already stunned Nguogwa. She asked, "President Ling, are you unhappy?" Hearing this, Ling Han was a little absent-minded. It had been a long time since anyone asked him if he was unhappy or happy. It seemed that all the days were not happy, but also not unhappy. Everything was done step by step, and he didn't need to spend too much effort. For so many years it was not for cooperation, but simply for this. Every night, there were very few moments for him to indulge in pleasure. He used to be very self-disciplined. He thought that he didn't need to rely on alcohol or flattery to reduce the loneliness of the long night. Nguogwa didn't hear a reply, but was pulled into an embrace. Even if he didn't like the strong perfume on her body, even if she was only similar to him for a moment, he still deceived himself that with alcohol in his body and a soft jade in his arms, this night would be very fulfilling. They partied until 3 in the morning. Everyone was tired and gradually left. Unknowingly, there were only 2 people left in the private room. When Wang Peizhou left, he meaningfully told Nguogwa, "Serve President Ling well, Guogwa." Chapter 219. The noise in the room dissipated, leaving only a mess on the floor. All kinds of expensive wine bottles were basically empty, and they were piled up in every corner of the room. Ling Han was a little drunk. His closed eyes didn't look lethal at all, and he looked very gentle. Nguogwa leaned on his chest, and couldn't help but take a deep breath, feeling the gentleness that this man brought to her. She had never expected such a man to think highly of her before, but God had given her a chance, so she naturally had to seize it. Her slender fingers brushed across the man's neck, and casually fiddled with his bow tie to loosen it. Her breathing was a little rapid. There was a smile at the corner of her mouth, and one of her hands moved down his chest. When she touched the belt buckle, she felt a little nervous. After being in this circle for so many years, it was naturally not her first time, but her heart couldn't help but beat faster, and her fingers began to tremble slightly. With a click, the belt buckle slipped off. She clung to his chest, straddled his legs, and buried her head in his shoulder. She murmured, "Han, let Guogwa serve you well. You'll like it." The heat in his body made Ling Han feel around involuntarily. After touching something soft, he suddenly flipped it over onto the spacious sofa. Just as he was about to go in, he suddenly smelled a strong perfume, which woke him up. He opened his eyes and saw the woman under him. His mind quivered, and he quickly pushed away the woman's arm that was around his neck and flipped over. His actions were smooth without the slightest hesitation. Nguogwa's body suddenly became light, and she was stunned. She supported herself on the sofa and forced herself to sit up. "President Ling, what's wrong?" Ling Han frowned. "It's getting late. I should go." Hearing that, Nguogwa panicked. She sat up in a hurry and reached out to grab Ling Han. "Guogwa will go with you." Ling Han avoided her hand, and there was undisguised disgust in his eyes. "No need. Put on your clothes before you go out. I don't want there to be any false news tomorrow." After saying this, he resolutely left, not giving her another glance as he left. Not long after Ling Han left, the door of the box was pushed open by a tender hand. After seeing the woman on the sofa who was dressing up, Sheng Amren's eyes were cold. "Are you Nguogwa?" Nguogwa was stunned by the familiar voice, and she stopped putting on her coat. She looked up and saw a figure wearing a cap. Her head was lowered, and she couldn't see her face. You are? She looked puzzled. Sheng Amren raised his head and stared at her unkindly. He sneered. Don't tell me you don't know me? Nguogua's heart skipped a beat. When she thought of the relationship between Sheng Amren and Ling Han, she inexplicably felt a little guilty. However, when she thought about how Ling Han seemed to have never admitted that Sheng Amren was his girlfriend, she felt a little more confident. Thinking of this, she even smiled at Sheng Amren in a friendly manner. I know you. How can I not know you? Movie Queen Sheng. Who doesn't know you in this circle? I just don't know why you're looking for me. We don't seem to have crossed paths before. Seeing that she avoided the important and dwelling on the trivial, Sheng Amren was even more annoyed. Don't touch things that shouldn't be yours. Didn't anyone tell you? Seeing that the other party was indeed here to cause trouble, Nguogua's temper flared. She snapped. Whether it's mine or not, I have to try it before I know. You're not like some people who keep telling others that it's hers. You don't even ask if it agrees. You. Sheng Amren raised her hand to hit her. But Nguogua had seen this kind of scene before. She was already on guard. She reached out and grabbed her wrist, saying angrily, You hit me when you don't agree with me. I'm going to expose this news. Guess how much money I can make. Sheng Amren's face had completely collapsed. She shouted at the door. Why aren't you coming in? Are you dead? As soon as she finished speaking, the door of the private room opened wide, and two big men barged in. When they saw Nguogua holding Sheng Amren's hand and not letting go, they didn't wait for Sheng Amren's order. One on each side, they pinned Nguogua against the wall. You, what do you want to do? Nguogua struggled and screamed. She didn't really start to panic until Sheng Amren made a move. She didn't expect Sheng Amren to dare to do this. At this moment, Sheng Amren stood in front of Nguogua, moved her painful arm, stared at Nguogua coldly, approached her step by step, pinched her chin, looked around, and said coldly, I just want to teach you a lesson and tell you to quit. You have more fans and fame now. If you still think about what doesn't belong to you, you don't know what's good for you. Nguogua gritted her teeth, obviously unwilling to give up. Aren't you afraid that I'll call the police if you do this? As soon as she finished speaking, there was a crisp slap in the face in the private room. Nguogua looked at the woman in front of her in disbelief, and a 5-finger mark swelled on her white left cheek. Sheng Amren was accurate and ruthless. This slap made her mouth full of blood. This slap is to tell you that I, Sheng Amren's man, you'd better not provoke him if you don't have the ability. I even have the ability to put his sister in prison, let alone you, a bitch who doesn't know the depth. Before she could speak, another slap fell on the other side of her face, which stunned her and made her see stars. Sheng Amren was not in a hurry and sneered. This slap is to tell you that you don't know what's good for you. You got a little of his good face, so you think you can fly to the branch and become a phoenix. I kindly remind you that in his eyes, you are just a pheasant. Nguogua didn't dare to speak again. Sheng Amren walked in front of her and looked at her thoroughly. At last she covered her nose and sneered. She waved her hand and let the two big men let her go. Nguogua sat on the ground, covering her cheeks and looking at Sheng Amren in fear, for fear that she had other means. Sheng Amren squatted down and patted her face with one hand across the back of her hand. Don't be afraid. I just suddenly found out that there's no need to care about anything with you. After all, you didn't even touch his bedside, did you? Nguogua's eyes were shocked, and she looked at her in disbelief. How did she know? Seeing her like this, Sheng Amren was more convinced in her heart. She was in a good mood and got up to leave. That's all for today. We're all in the same circle. I won't embarrass you. Don't put your mind on Ling Han in the future. Do you hear me? Nguogua nodded like pounding garlic. At this time, a wise man submits to the circumstances. Who would hit a stone with an egg? But when Sheng Amren's figure disappeared at the door of the box, the timid look on her face disappeared without a trace. She gritted her teeth and clenched her fists secretly, with a trace of insidiousness in her eyes. We're all in the same circle. Why can't you think with your heart and I can't? Winner is king and loser is in the wrong. Wait and see. She had to climb up Ling Han's bed. Chapter 220. On Saturday in Jinjiang Court. Ji Xiaoya finally got a Saturday that she didn't have to work overtime. Su Mang gave her a special holiday after he heard that Yi Huanyan was released from prison. The visit of her good friend swept away the haze of the past few days. Yi Huanyan got up early the day before after she received a call from Ji Xiaoya. She went to the supermarket with Ling Ling to buy ingredients and was ready to cook in person. When she called, Ji Xiaoya just got off work and was very tired. They didn't talk much. Yi Huanyan heard the tiredness in her voice. She urged her to have a rest and said that they could talk when they met. Then she hung up the phone first. When Ji Xiaoya arrived and saw the table full of dishes, she was so shocked that her jaw almost dropped. Yan Yan, are you going to feed the pigs? Yi Huanyan quickly pulled her to sit down. The smile on her face was inexplicably gentler than before. She looked like a housewife with a motherly glow. It's rare for you to come here, and it's rare for me to cook. So I made more. I'll pack the extra for you. You can take it back and put it in the refrigerator. You can eat it after it's hot. Ji Xiaoya looked at Yi Huanyan carefully and said with a sad tone, I won't pack it. You eat more. I see that you have lost a lot of weight. The food, there is not very good, right? When she said there, she paused for a second. It seemed that she was a little embarrassed to say it. Yi Huanyan didn't take it seriously. She just smiled faintly and was busy filling soup for her. That place is okay. It's not as hard as you think. Every day we eat and sleep regularly. Except for the bad conditions, there is nothing bad. Ji Xiaoya stared at Yi Huanyan's gesture of filling soup. She always felt that it was a little stiff. She couldn't help but ask, What's wrong with your arm? Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. Nothing. I fell down 2 days ago. Let me see. It's really nothing. While they were pulling, Ji Xiaoya couldn't help but see the scar on his arm. When she was released from prison, her arm was almost fully healed. The retainer had been removed, and the bandage had been removed. All that was left was a long scar that extended from her left elbow all the way to her shoulder. After the scab fell off, there was a pink protrusion that was very clear. The medical facilities in the prison were limited, and the wound was not treated well at that time. This scar would not be easily removed. When she saw the scar, before Yi Huanyan could say anything, Ji Xiaoya's eyes turned red. She turned around to avoid Yi Huanyan's gaze and said in a choked voice, How did you end up like this? And you fell. How did you fall like this? It's been at least a month, right? Yi Huanyan quickly pulled down her sleeves and pretended to be relaxed. This is nothing. It's just a small injury. Who doesn't get hurt in their life? Hurry up and eat. It's rare for us to see each other. Do you have to be like this with me? Ji Xiaoya glared at her resentfully. Her eyes were red. You're still talking about it. You didn't contact me after you were released from prison. If I hadn't seen the news, I wouldn't have known. News? Yi Huanyan was a little confused. Ji Xiaoya hesitated for a moment and changed the topic. Forget it. Let's eat. Eat more. Ling Ling was tidying up in the kitchen. She was relieved when she saw that Yi Huanyan ate one more bowl of rice than usual, without any morning sickness. Ji Xiaoya only had half a day off. When she was leaving, she pointed to a pile of luxury bags in the corner of the hallway. Here. Our managing editor asked me to bring you those. They are all the latest designs. You should go out and have a look. You're so capable at work. I'm sure many companies will fight to hire you. Yi Huanyan instinctively touched her lower abdomen and frowned. I haven't been feeling well recently. I want to rest for a while. That's true. Ji Xiaoya pondered for a moment. Suddenly, she thought of something and asked, If it's too boring to stay here, do you want to consider going on a trip for a while? Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. A trip? She hadn't gone out for about 2 years. Ever since Ling Dongming and Jiang Milan's car accident, the successive blows had made her forget the meaning of life. She had forgotten some of the things she used to do in the past. She had also forgotten the taste of life in the past. Yes, it just so happens that the managing editor asked me to go out and prepare for a cultural activity. I've been preparing for the trip for the past 2 days. If you're free, why don't you come with us? Let me think about it. She actually wanted to go, but she had a lot of concerns. Ji Xiaoye didn't rush her. When she left, she was a little reluctant. If I'm free, I'll come and see you. It's just that I've been too busy for the past 2 days. You have to take good care of yourself. Look for me if you need anything. Yi Huanyan stood at the entrance of the courtyard and waited until Ji Xiaoye drove away. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. She covered her chest and bent over by the flower bed to vomit. Ling Ling heard the sound and rushed over. Her expression changed drastically. She hurriedly went back to the house to get medicine and water. She muttered, "Why is she like this again? Wasn't she fine just now?" Yi Huanyan wouldn't tell her. She didn't want her friend to worry. Everyone had their own life. Since she knew that no one else could help her, she shouldn't let her own problems become a burden to others. She squatted on the stairs and vomited until her stomach was empty. When she got up, the world spun around her. Fortunately, Ling Ling was quick enough to catch her and prevent her from falling down the stairs. "Miss Yi, what should we do?" Ling Ling was so anxious that she didn't know what to do. Yi Huanyan smiled and squeezed her hand. "I'm fine." "Ling Ling, can you make me a bowl of sweet soup? I want to drink it." Seeing her pretending to be relaxed, Ling Ling felt especially bad. After making the sweet soup and bringing it to the coffee table, she leaned against the sofa and closed her eyes, as if she was about to fall asleep. "Miss Yi, eat something before you sleep. It's hard to sleep with an empty stomach." When making the sweet soup, Ling Ling didn't dare to put too much alcohol. Yi Huanyan wasn't in good health now. She didn't eat many things, but she didn't eat those things. She vomited everything she ate, which made Ling Ling's heart ache. She didn't understand why the young master didn't ask about Yi Huanyan. If he really didn't care, why did he drive to the door and stare in the direction of the master bedroom for so long last night? Yi Huanyan nodded and drank the sweet soup. After drinking half of it, she lost her appetite. Ling Ling helped her upstairs to rest, and she followed. Her steps were heavy, but she was light as a feather. It was as if a gust of wind could blow her away. "Miss Yi, why didn't you tell Miss Ji about your pregnancy?" Yi Huanyan lifted the blanket and laughed bitterly. "I don't know if I can keep this child. I don't want her to worry about me. Why can't you keep it?" Ling Ling hurriedly comforted her. "The doctor said that she'll be fine after a good rest." Yi Huanyan wasn't referring to what the doctor said. She was afraid that after that person's patience ran out, he still couldn't tolerate this child. Yi Huanyan held her stomach and closed her eyes. The tip of her tongue tasted bitter. She felt that the sweet soup just now was tasteless. Chapter 221. The next day was the annual Fengyan Entertainment Awards ceremony in Lanjiang City. It was mainly based on the contribution of the entertainment topics of the last year. It selected various awards for the active newcomers of the previous year, mainly some of the most popular awards and encouragement awards. The guest presenters were all heavyweights to show the care of the seniors. When Ling Han attended the opening ceremony of the award ceremony with Yin Guogua, the microphones and cameras in the hands of the reporters seemed to have grown eyes and aimed at the two of them crazily. If the previous scandals were solely hype on Yin Guogua's side, this time Ling Han ignored the scandals and walked the red carpet with Yin Guogua generously. It could be said that he admitted the relationship between the two people in a disguised way. What was even more embarrassing was that the movie queen Sheng Anren followed closely behind them. The reporters couldn't interview Ling Han, so they all aimed the microphones at Sheng Anren. "Miss Sheng, have you broken up with President Ling of Pleasure? Why did you come to the red carpet alone this time?" Sheng Anren smiled very appropriately, only showing a trace of displeasure for a moment when she lowered her head and stroked her hair. After all, the movie queen was the movie queen, and her professional ethics were extraordinarily good. She tilted her head slightly and glanced at the figure who had walked to the end of the red carpet in the distance. She immediately smiled and said, "You may think too much. Guogua is a newcomer in the company. It's probably her first time attending such a scene. And I'm the guest presenter of this award ceremony. I have something to do after the red carpet, so I'm quite busy. There was a hidden meaning in her words. Obviously, she was whetting the reporter's appetite. Seeing that the crowd still wanted to interview her, Shung Amran glanced at the bodyguards and agents on the side intentionally or unintentionally. The reporters behind were all blocked outside the cordon. Shung Amran lifted the corner of her skirt and stepped on the red carpet in 12-centimeter high heels. This was her home ground, and no one could steal her limelight here. Who was Nguogwa? Ling Han signed his name on the curtain, then glanced at Nguogwa on the side. He didn't show contempt for her slightly young and stingy appearance. Instead, when he went down the stairs, he patiently reached out to hold her with a pink gentleman attitude. This action was naturally photographed by the reporters. Coupled with Shung Imran's textbook-like speech, it deserved to be the best headline of the red carpet tonight. After entering the venue, Nguogwa naturally sat next to Ling Han in the second row. After sitting down, she attracted a lot of envious gazes. Ling Han had a lot of scandals, but the female celebrities who really believed those scandals and tried to flirt with him knew that this person was not easy to get close to. The first row was for the guest presenter and the host. A few seats away, Shung Amran could be seen at a distance. Shung Amran pretended to look back unintentionally. The smile on Nguogwa's face froze slightly, and she felt a faint pain on her face. She subconsciously moved closer to Ling Han. President Ling, Shung Amran is looking at us, she whispered, deliberately revealing a trace of grievance in her tone. What? Do you know her? Ling Han asked casually, and nodded to Shung Amran in response. In public, the harmony that should be maintained had to be maintained. Otherwise, who knew how many groundless rumors there would be tonight? She is the movie queen, and I am just a small anchor. I don't know her. Nguogwa's tone was a little sour. These trivial things naturally did not fall into Ling Han's ears. In fact, after leaving the Golden Crown last night, he did not go to the hotel to pick up Nguogwa until just before the opening ceremony of the award ceremony. So he did not know what happened between her and Shung Amran. He did not know if it was deliberately arranged, but the guest who gave the award to Nguogwa was Shung Amran. The Encouragement Award of Best New Female Anchor was not a big award, and there were a dozen other awards at the same time. When they went on stage, a dozen female anchors lined up in a row on the steps. They lined up very orderly and went on stage one by one. Because Nguogwa had been in the limelight recently, she deserved to walk in the front, and also the position closest to the podium and the camera. After Shung Amran read the award, she looked into the distance. A dozen young and beautiful female artists came up one by one. The oldest one was only 23 or 24 years old. It can be said that they were young, which made her feel very uncomfortable. Nguogwa, who was the leader, was wearing the latest long dress in the BV show field. She had a high V on her chest, revealing her proud curves. Even Shung Amran could not compare with her. At this moment, the smile on the young and sweet face was particularly dazzling. Shung Amran had a smile on her face, and her eyes swept over the figure behind Nguogwa intentionally or unintentionally. Behind Nguogwa was a female anchor with a rather delicate appearance. After receiving the signal of Shung Amran's eyes, she seemed to stumble forward unintentionally. Ouch! Then the BV strapless dress worth hundreds of thousands of yuan was peeled off from Nguogwa's body perfectly, revealing her proud upper body curves. She screamed, and the eyes and cameras of the whole venue were aimed at her. The big screen enlarged the proud chest curve and the snow-white back, and the whole audience was in an uproar. There was a commotion on and off the stage, and even Ling Han was nervous. After all, she was an artist of Pleasure's subsidiary company. If she wanted to lose face, she would lose the face of the whole Pleasure. Nguogwa lay on the ground and did not dare to move under the cover of the dress. Her shameful appearance of wanting to cry, but having no tears, was miserable to the extreme. She looked at the female anchor who stepped on her dress angrily, but couldn't get angry in front of so many people. The once-in-a-lifetime newcomer award was ruined like this. When everyone was busy looking at Nguogwa, only Ling Han's eyes fell on Shung Amran and caught the flash of complacency in her eyes. His eyes were very calm, and he was not surprised by such an inside story. The struggle between women in this circle was never divided by the occasion and time. It was always the winner and the loser. Nguogwa was at a disadvantage in front of him, but it didn't mean that her heart was so clean, and it didn't mean that she would be defeated in the future. It was just that at present, she was really too stupid. Ling Han frowned and looked at the chaos in front of him. He suddenly thought of the woman who always stood in the venue in formal clothes in the past on such occasions. In his impression, she always had a way to deal with all unexpected events. She had a smart mind, but it was rare that she had a tranquil look that didn't fight for anything. It seemed that no matter how difficult the problem was in her eyes, she could be organized and followed the rules, and she could do it slowly. Didn't fight for anything? She should have seen the news in recent days. A sense of tiredness appeared on his eyebrows for no reason. When the farce of the award ceremony was over, Sheng Anren looked under the stage again, and Ling Han's figure had disappeared. Chapter 222. Jin Jiangyuan, that clear-minded and quick-witted woman, who didn't fight for anything, was also doing something that didn't fight for anything. The red carpet news was playing on the computer. The woman holding Ling Han had a bright smile on her face. Yi Huanyan felt like she had completely lost the youthfulness and vitality on her face. Maybe Ji Xiaoya was right. She should go out for a walk, and then decide if she should leave. Yi Huanyan was packing when the black SUV stopped downstairs. Her huge suitcase was already stuffed full of spring clothes, and a few summer clothes. It looked like she was going to travel for a long time. Lingling, can you help me find 2 sets of toiletries for my trip? I remember there were a lot of small samples before. Yi Huanyan carefully walked over the suitcase to the door and shouted downstairs. Lingling was cleaning up the kitchen. The sound of running water was too loud, so she didn't seem to hear it. Yi Huanyan hesitated for a moment. In the end, she decided to put aside the packing matter and go find the clothes herself. The stock of skincare products and toiletries were all in the closet next door. However, she usually asked Lingling to get them, so it was a little difficult to find them. When Lingling turned off the tap and came out, she was shocked to see Ling Han enter the room. Young master. Ling Han nodded and walked upstairs. It took a lot of time and effort, but in the end, he still couldn't find a woman like her. Even the slight resemblance was just his imagination. He gave up. Wasn't it just a child? If she wanted it, then so be it. As long as she stayed by his side peacefully, it would be enough if he could occasionally feel a trace of comfort in this foul circle. He twisted open the door, and just as he stepped out, the tip of his foot hit an obstacle. His gaze fell on the neatly packed suitcase. His originally gentle eyes gradually turned cold, and under the light, there was a faint cold light. She's leaving? Rustling sounds came from the closet next door. His home slippers dragged on the floor with a heavy thud as he pushed open the door. Behind a long black leather sofa, a thin figure was squatting in front of a white Nordic-style cabinet. Lingling, where did you put your pajamas? Yi Huanyan thought it was Lingling when she heard the door open, so she asked, Is it in this closet? Ling Han silently walked into the room and looked at the figure from across the sofa. He was so angry that the veins on his forehead bulged. Where are you going? When she heard this voice, Yi Huanyan shuddered and almost fell to the ground. She held onto the cabinet door and carefully stood up. Why are you back? He took a step forward and said coldly, What I'm asking is, where are you going? Yi Huanyan instinctively stepped back, but her back was against the white cabinet, and there was nowhere to go. Ling Han's eyes were cold. He walked over the sofa with his long legs and grabbed Yi Huanyan's neck with one hand. He said slowly, I'm asking, where are you going? Yi Huanyan's eyes were filled with fear. As Ling Han tightened his grip, it was as if something was stuck in her throat, and she couldn't say a word. She struggled, hit Ling Han's hand, and pushed his chest with all her might. Ling Han's voice gradually became a distant roar in her ears. It was not until he saw that Yi Huanyan's face was blue and purple, that the outline of the white of her eyes was getting bigger and bigger, and that the slapping gesture was gradually dispirited, that Ling Han let go of her neck as if he was struck by lightning. She slid into his arms with her eyes closed, and only her mouth open. It seemed that she was no longer breathing. At this moment, Ling Han's eyes showed a hint of panic. Yi Huanyan. He shook her shoulders. There was dead silence. Yi Huanyan. Yi Huanyan only felt like the world had turned pure white in that moment of suffocation. It was as if she had seen this scene a long time ago, and the world had returned to its original purity. This was good too. She didn't have to endure any more humiliation, and she didn't have to care about what others thought of her. She heard a voice calling her. She didn't know who it was, but she felt that it was very familiar. Was there someone who cared about her? In this world, was there anyone who could empathize with her situation? Not long after, Ling Ling heard the sound and came over. When she saw the scene in front of her, she exclaimed, "Young master, what happened to Miss Yi?" Ling Han just hugged Yi Huanyan, and his voice was no longer as calm as before. "She's not breathing. She's not breathing." There was a circle of red marks around Yi Huanyan's neck, and the situation was self-evident. "Young master, give her water, give her water." When she saw the circle of red marks, she suddenly had a flash of inspiration. She said this incoherently, but when she saw that Ling Han already looked like he had lost his soul, she stomped her feet, turned around, and ran to the kitchen to get a cup of hot water. After pouring the cup of hot water, there was a reaction. Cough, cough. Yi Huanyan's violent coughing filled the entire room. The hot water spread over her chest and soaked her pajamas, but after the violent coughing, she still closed her eyes and showed no signs of waking up. This method was a local remedy from Ling Ling's hometown. It was very useful to treat temporary shock when one couldn't breathe. She had seen many of her relatives use this method with her own eyes. Ling Ling was also treating a dead horse as a living one, and she didn't know if it would work. At this moment, Ling Han was like an irritable lion, holding Yi Huanyan's shoulders tightly and not letting go. His eyes were filled with a strange blood-red color, and he finally broke down and yelled, "Yi Huanyan, if you don't open your eyes, I'll beat this bastard in your stomach." The person in his arms finally showed signs of waking up. "She's awake, she's awake." Ling Ling stood to the side and covered her mouth, crying tears of joy. Yi Huanyan slowly opened her eyes, but they were empty. She stared blankly at Ling Han for a while, and still couldn't believe that this man in front of her really wanted to kill her. She raised a hand, as if she wanted to touch his face, but in the end, her hand stopped in midair. She couldn't hide the disappointment in her teary eyes, and she didn't want to hide it. However, there was a resentment in her chest that couldn't be dispelled. She held it in for a while, then finally turned her head and violently coughed out a mouthful of blood. The blood splattered on the pure white cabinet door, and it was a shocking sight. As Ling Ling cried out in alarm, she tried to open her mouth and murmured, I just. Xiao Yu said, "I can go out with her. You're not willing." I won't go." Seeing her close her eyes, a crack finally appeared on Ling Han's face. Shock and regret intertwined, seeping into every single one of his nerves, faintly hurting. He hugged her shoulders, trembling uncontrollably. He originally just wanted to tell her that he agreed to keep the child. How did it become like this? How? "I'll call the doctor." Ling Ling's eyes were filled with tears. She turned and ran, leaving only the sad room and the awake person alone. When she woke up, she could only see endless regret. Chapter 223. When Yi Huanyan woke up, she only heard someone talking outside the door. She could vaguely hear the female doctor who visited her every once in a while, and Ling Ling's voice, but nothing else. She closed her eyes and covered her stomach with her hands. A trace of tears streaked across her eyes. "Fortunately, you're still here." The female doctor gave Ling Ling a few words of advice, and went downstairs with the medicine box. "It's nothing serious. It's just a stagnant qi in blood. Take care of yourself in the future. It's not a big deal to cough up blood once, but you can't do it too many times. It'll hurt your lungs." Ling Ling saw the doctor out. When she came back, she saw Yi Huanyan sitting on the bed and staring at the ceiling. There was a dim yellow lamp in the room. It shone on her face, and the outline of her face was very soft. There wasn't much color on her face, and she seemed to be a little fuller. "Miss Yi, you're awake?" She tried her best to act as if nothing had happened. She pretended that it was a nightmare, and that she could continue living after waking up. Yi Huanyan nodded weakly, and looked behind Ling Ling. When Ling Ling saw this, she couldn't help but sigh secretly. After the doctor came and said that you were fine, young master left. Actually, young master still cares about you. The smile on Yi Huanyan's face became more and more forced. After staring at the door for a while, she retracted her gaze and closed her eyes. "Ling Ling, I'm sleepy." "Then Miss Yi, go to sleep. Everything will be fine when you wake up." With her eyes closed, she vaguely felt the light in the room dim. Ling Ling closed the door. The room fell silent, but she didn't feel lonely. At least she had the baby with her. She was used to lying to herself. Even though she had almost lost her life just now, she had coughed up blood because of his interrogation. However, at this moment, in the middle of the night, she touched her stomach and realized that she still had a trace of hope for him. In the old times bar, the lights were red, and the deafening music made the group of men and women on the dance floor dance like demons. In a private room separated from the dance floor by a hollow wooden plank, TR's Wang Peizhou had organized a celebration banquet for the winners of the awards. Wang Peizhou walked around and randomly grabbed a male streamer and asked, "Where's Guagua? Why is she not here?" A mischievous smile appeared on the male host's face. "CEO Wang, weren't you at the award ceremony just now? In that scene, although we are all thick-skinned, we can't be that thick-skinned, right? It was equivalent to filming a nude scene in front of the camera. Wouldn't she have to go back and cry?" However, Wang Peizhou did not think so. He glanced at the male host. "Do you think everyone is like you? You have to be thick-skinned to do this." After saying this, he found a secluded place to make a call. "Hello, Guogua, where are you?" "CEO Wang, I'm not feeling very well. Can I not go tonight?" A slightly choked voice came from the other end of the phone. "How can that be? You won the Best Newcomer award. You've won us glory. This celebration banquet is held for you." However, Yin Guogua wasn't thin-skinned. She was just sulking. She forced herself to tidy up her clothes and receive the award. When she raised her eyes to look, Ling Han had long disappeared. She thought that he most likely felt embarrassed and left early. Her heart was filled with unwillingness and resentment. "CEO Wang, I'd better not go. You guys have fun. Guagua, I don't want to scold you, but why are you so insensible? CEO Ling will be here soon. If you're not here, what should I say when he asks? He'll think that I didn't handle today's matter well." Wang Peizhou thought that Yin Guogua was putting on airs, so his tone was a little unfriendly. When she heard that Ling Han would be going as well, Yin Guogua's expression changed. "Are you saying that CEO Ling will be going too?" "Yes, I just received a call. Am I not planning to heat up the place? Are you coming?" "Yes, why not?" After hanging up the phone, Yin Guogua looked at her face in the mirror of the hotel. She was so young that water could be pinched out. Even if she was not as delicate as Sheng Inran, she had her own style. When she was changing her clothes, she suddenly remembered what Assistant Xiao said when she sent the dress to her today. "Don't spray too much perfume. CEO Ling doesn't like it." She looked at the clothes in her suitcase and suddenly hesitated. Recently, Ling Han seemed to be more and more impatient with her. It seemed that no matter how carefully she dressed up, she could not win his favor. When Ling Han saw her for the first time, he was particularly concerned about her. Why? She didn't believe in love at first sight. He was the first man who could show her that kind of look at her for the first time. That look was obviously the admiration of knowing each other for a long time. But she had only seen him once in Hujiang. When they first met, she seemed to be wearing a school uniform. Could it be that this man had some sort of special fetish? She shook her head. It shouldn't be possible. If he did, it would be easy to get hold of him. Thinking of this, her hand that was looking for clothes still slid past the sexy dress and landed on the plain shirt and jeans at the side. Try it. After all, many men nowadays prefer those who look pure, don't they? Ling Han's car was parked on a street of the famous Hohai Bar in Lanjiang City. After getting off the car, He walked in the direction of the old-time bar. There were many men and women on the street. In the early spring weather, there were also people wearing revealing clothes. From a distance, he saw an inharmonious figure at the entrance of the bar. White shirt, jeans, and a gray cardigan jacket. At the moment, she was lowering her head and kicking the stones on the ground in boredom. His heart inexplicably thumped, but he quickly recovered and raised his lips in self-mockery. How could it be her? At this moment, the figure had obviously found him. She waved her hand from a distance and then trotted to him. CEO Ling, you're here. It's you? Ling Han's eyes showed a trace of surprise. Nguogwa followed his gaze and glanced at her clothes. She held the hem of her cardigan in both hands and whispered, CEO Ling, I just lost face for you. I should have been more careful. Ling Han frowned and stared at her. Looking at her pretending to be pure, he sneered in his heart. What's the difference between dressing like this at the entrance of the bar and being a bitch? I don't know what message I gave her. Let her dress up like this to flatter him. A smart-ass woman looks annoying. In front of me, you'd better put away your cleverness. He dropped a cold sentence and went straight into the bar. Nguogwa stood in place, looking embarrassed. This man is far different from the legend. It's easy to get close to him. It's difficult to get his favor. At this moment, she suddenly began to admire Sheng Anren. What ability did she use to stay with him for nearly a year? Watching Ling Han's figure disappear in the bar, she clenched her fingers in place. Anyway, tonight is probably her last chance. Chapter 224. In the private room of the Old Times Bar. From the moment he entered the private room, Ling Han did not refuse anyone. No matter who offered him a toast, he did not ask for the reason. He drank one glass after another, looking like he would not stop until he was drunk. Everyone went to offer a toast. Nguogwa sat beside Ling Han with 2 glasses of wine. President Ling, we're going back to Shanghai tomorrow. This glass of wine is a farewell toast to you. There was a sense of carefreeness in her words. Ling Han glanced at her. After all, she had accompanied him to kill a lot of loneliness these days. He had to give her a glass of wine. He took it and drank it in one gulp. Ling Han could not remember how many glasses of wine he drank after that. That night, he was in a particularly low mood. Originally, he went to the bar to numb his inner thoughts. There were many people, and in the end, his vision began to blur. He only heard a delicate voice beside him urging him to drink. The next morning, in the hotel suite near the bar, clothes were everywhere. The snow-white sheets covered 2 naked bodies. The woman leaned against the man's chest and slept soundly. When Ling Han woke up, this was the scene beside him. He held his forehead and sat up on the bed. The woman in his arms woke up and looked at him. Her eyes were like water with a bit of pretentious shyness. President Ling, you're awake. Ling Han's face was gloomy. He only felt disgusted. You drank too much last night. I didn't know where you lived, so I brought you to the hotel. But you, Nguogwa, I reminded you not to play tricks. Ling Han's cold voice directly interrupted her. Even if no one cared about him, the bartender in the bar knew where to send him. There was no need for Nguogwa to do anything. The current situation was clearly set up by her. He suddenly remembered the glass of wine last night, the glass she handed to him. It was not long after he drank that glass of wine that his consciousness began to blur. His usual alcohol tolerance was not that little. Nguogwa looked aggrieved and choked. President Ling, you forced me last night. I couldn't resist at all. Why are you blaming me? By the time she finished speaking, the sound of sobbing could already be heard. Ling Han became more and more agitated. He lifted the quilt and got out of bed with a cold expression. Get the check from Xiaomu. You'd better keep your mouth shut about what happened yesterday. I don't want a third person to know about it. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences. He especially didn't want this matter to reach her ears again. Ling Han's voice was extremely cold, and Nguogwa couldn't help but shiver. Her hands that were gripping the corner of the blanket also became a bit cold. She suddenly felt a bit of regret. She didn't know whether the deployment last night was beneficial or detrimental to her. While Ling Han was taking a shower, she quickly put on her bathrobe and paced back and forth in the room. At this moment, a phone call came in. The voice on the other end of the phone was somewhat anxious. Guagua, everything is ready outside. How are you inside? Guagua gritted her teeth. Why don't we just let it go? You can just create some rumors. Is there a need to make such a big deal out of it? You want to give up such a good opportunity? I'm telling you. Even Sheng Anren didn't have such solid evidence. As soon as she heard the name Sheng Anren, Guagua's expression changed. She suddenly remembered the news that her friend had helped her find last night. The female streamer, who had stepped on her skirt, had a special relationship with Sheng Anren. How could it be so coincidental that the female streamer had stepped on her skirt and made a fool of herself in public? Thinking of this, Guagua made up her mind and reported the room number. The room number is 1204. The sound of water in the bathroom stopped abruptly. Before long, Ling Han changed his clothes and came out. He was still wearing the same clothes as yesterday, and he still reeked of alcohol. He didn't even look at Guagua and walked toward the door. He didn't notice at all that Guagua behind him had a smug smile in her eyes. When he opened the door, the swarm of cameras and microphones almost made Ling Han stumble. Behind the flashes were reporters who couldn't hold back anymore. They all held up their microphones and blocked all of Ling Han's exits. And as if oil was added to the fire in the room, a woman's scream came out. The cameras all pointed at the source of the sound. It's Guagua. At this moment, Guagua was wearing a wine-red bathrobe. Her exposed skin was covered with light red kiss marks. What had happened between the two of them was already confirmed. Ling Han's face was gloomy. He clenched his fists and was about to explode in the crowd of reporters who were chasing after the details of last night. That day, the headlines of all the major news outlets were exactly the same. Internet celebrity live streamer Guagua and Pleasure Group's president Ling Han had a night of love. Guagua's follow-up to the scandal, the kiss mark incident. In addition, Sheng Anren, who had always considered herself Mrs. Ling, didn't respond. The reporters took the fact that Sheng Anren and Ling Han's relationship had changed as her tacit agreement, and directly pushed this gossip to the climax. Guagua became the mistress and crushed the movie queen Sheng Anren. News like this kept popping up. It could be said that this woman named Guagua had become an instant hit overnight. Yi Huanyan looked at the news on her laptop, and her eyes dimmed bit by bit. She had seen this kind of news too many times. She originally thought that she would be numb to it, but she didn't expect that in addition to numbness, her heart would still ache faintly. Lingling knocked on the door and said worriedly, "Miss Yi, it's time for lunch." Yi Huanyan hesitated for a moment before closing her laptop. She turned around and looked up at Lingling. Then she revealed a faint smile and said gently, "Okay." Pleasure Group's public relations department was a mess. Because they didn't know what kind of attitude Ling Han had toward Guagua. The public relations team didn't dare to make a decision. The office's phone was almost blown up by the reporters, but no one dared to casually respond. After Ling Han arrived at the company, Xiaomu hurried back from the public relations department and said in an urgent tone, "President Ling, we've suppressed some of the news for now. As for the specific measures, the public relations manager downstairs is still waiting for your instructions. As for that Guagua, how should we deal with her? Ban her?" Ling Han's face was gloomy. As soon as he sat down, he spat out the two words coldly. This woman had completely ruined his appetite. As long as he thought of her, he felt that there was no part of his body that wasn't disgusting. Xiaomu already knew what to do with these two words. The first step was to ban Guagua's personal livestream room and freeze her account. According to the 10-year contract with the company, this woman didn't have a basic source of income and couldn't casually accept any commercial performances without the company's approval. Pleasure Group's public relations department had always been known for its thunderous methods in the entertainment industry. As soon as the measures were taken, Guagua's livestream room showed that there was something wrong with her account that afternoon and was temporarily banned. Meanwhile, all the negative news about Guagua on the hot search list were frequently exposed. There were real and fake news mixed in, and they were all ambiguous yet convincing. When the last piece of news was exposed on the internet, Nguogwa was already on the verge of collapse. Popular female live streamer failed to seduce her boss because she once worked as a hostess at Dongi bathing parlor. With such a basin of dirty water splashed on her, it was almost impossible for her to clear her name by herself. Chapter 225. Behind the emergency public relations was the entire Pleasure's public relations department on emergency standby. Almost every once in a while, someone would hand over the development of the online discussion to Ling Han for review. Meanwhile, Ling Han absent-mindedly stared at the phone on the table. He could not tell what he was waiting for. Perhaps he was waiting for a call to inquire. Or perhaps he was waiting for a reprimanding text. Or perhaps he was waiting for nothing but a greeting from her. But he never got the chance. Hence, the delay made him even more agitated, and the entire pleasure department used all the methods they could to deal with disobedient artists. Xiaomu pushed open the door, and in her hands were the real-time search results and the current trend of the online discussion. Nguogwa had already been thoroughly scolded, and the continuous negative news had already turned the door-opening incident into a thing of the past. Almost no one mentioned it, and the endless and jaw-dropping topics of 3 escorts and naked chatting attracted the attention of the audience. President Ling, Nguogwa said that she's willing to hold a press conference to clarify this matter, and begs us to let her off and give her a chance. Ling Han's expression was gloomy as he coldly said, "She gets a chance just because she wants it? Who does she think she is?" Xiaomu was startled. "She's an artist from TR after all, isn't she? TR has plenty of artists, and we don't lack people like her who play petty tricks." As soon as he said this, Xiaomu knew that there was no turning back, so she did not say anything else. She only secretly sized up Ling Han, and felt that he was exceptionally irritable today. In the past, quite a few people had tried their best to create a scandal with him, but they had never seen him fly into a rage like this. Xiaomu was inwardly astonished. She did not know what had happened behind his abnormal mood. While the people of pleasure were busy, Sheng Anren, who was filming in the film studio far away, saw the news of that day. With just a glance he could tell which news, true or false, was the work of Pleasure's public relations. Suddenly, he felt that the knife hanging over his head for the past few days had finally disappeared, and even his breathing became much easier. After the scene was over, the agent Su Jie stuffed a cup of coffee into her hand and briefly told her about the schedule for the next day. Out of the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of that day's entertainment headlines in the van. She suddenly thought of something and frowned. "By the way, that female broadcaster called Nguogwa called you this afternoon. I told her you were busy. Do you want to call her back?" "What did she say?" "What else can she say? She said that she wanted you to plead for President Ling to let her go." After saying this, Sister Su sneered. "This kind of thing who doesn't know what's good for her dares to beg you. What were you doing when you climbed into a man's bed?" Hearing this, Sheng Anren was not angry. Instead, she was a bit proud. At least in Nguogwa's eyes, her prestige was finally reflected by Ling Han's thunderous means this time. She was afraid that she would still need this Nguogwa in the future. "Don't call her back first. If you push her too hard, she will call again. If she calls again, tell her to wait." She had to keep her in suspense, right? For the next few days, the headlines of all the major newspapers were about Nguogwa's scandals. At first, she accepted interviews with reporters and took the initiative to clarify some things. In the end, there were more and more scandals, and the speed of explanation could not keep up with the speed of the scandals being exposed. And the reporters seemed to have made an agreement that no one cared about the protagonist of such a big incident. Nguogwa finally realized that she had really annoyed the manipulator behind the scenes. She did not believe that Ling Han would be so heartless. Her jealousy quickly shifted to Sheng Anren, who had been staying by Ling Han's side and showing the attitude of not fighting for the first wife. It must be her. In the afternoon, there was a remote coffee shop near the film and television city. Because it was near the film and television city, and they were used to seeing star artists. The boss and waiters here were not surprised. There were not many people in the shop. Most of them were separated by curtains for the convenience of artists to rest. When waiting for someone, Nguogwa looked around in her seat again, and again irritably, and beat what she wanted to say countless times in her stomach. But when she really saw Sheng Amren in person, she could not say a word of what she wanted to say. Full of resentment and unwillingness, her face was very embarrassed. "My agent said that you wanted to see me?" Sheng Amren said such a sentence indifferently, and then looked at her calmly, without the appearance of jealousy and hatred before. After holding it in for a long time, Nguogwa said dryly, "Miss Sheng, I know I was wrong. I won't provoke President Ling in the future. You are so kind as to forgive me and let me go. I can't be banned." Sheng Amren stirred the coffee cup with a small silver spoon, held her chin with the other hand, lowered her eyes, fell on the rotating coffee foam, and looked indifferent. "I didn't ban you. I'm afraid you found the wrong person." Seeing that her attitude was friendly, Nguogwa also had some courage and hesitated. "I know President Ling is dissatisfied with me for framing him, but I just want to be popular. Miss Sheng, we are all in the entertainment circle. We have to be famous as soon as possible. I can't help it. It's the first time I've heard that seducing the boss is something you can't help." A trace of contempt flashed in Sheng Amren's eyes. She glanced at Nguogwa, as if she disdained her behavior very much. At this moment, her attitude was like that of a first wife. She enjoyed this feeling very much, just like many times before, except for those ungrateful flowers and plants around Ling Han. Nguogwa's humble appearance made her very happy. But I didn't do anything," Nguogwa cried with a face full of grievance. "President Ling was drunk that night, and I was busy setting up those traces. When I finished all of them, it was dawn." Hearing this, Sheng Amren almost laughed out loud. Looking at this stupid Nguogwa, Sheng Amren suddenly felt that she was a bit of a fallen person with her in her heart. However, this thought disappeared in a flash. Opportunities were left for smart people. Of course, she couldn't be compared with such a stupid woman. "Do you know why you could get President Ling's favor in the first place?" Sheng Amren suddenly changed the topic, and her eyes were fixed on Nguogwa's pure face. Nguogwa's heart thumped, and she said guiltily, "No, I don't know. I heard that you were wearing a school uniform when you saw President Ling for the first time in Lanjiang." She was stunned. Sheng Amren's question coincided with her thoughts before that night. "Have you ever seen this person?" Sheng Amren suddenly pushed her mobile phone in front of her. There was a photo stuck together on it. It looked old. The photo was yellow, but it couldn't hide the young vitality of the girl in it. She was wearing a blue and white striped school uniform, with a ponytail. She seemed to be standing at the school gate, and she smiled at the camera very naturally. Nguogwa vaguely felt that this person was familiar, but she couldn't remember where she had seen him. "Your real opponent." There was a meaningful smile at the corner of Sheng Amren's mouth, and her eyes were cold. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.